Holy Dr. Chase Meridian, Batman! Tiki here!
And Blue Dragon 5.
And tonight we are gathered here to celebrate the 30th anniversary of Joel Schumacher's seminal Batman Forever. That's right, the movie that put Val Kilmer on the map in the superhero genre. The movie that jump-started Joel Schumacher's glam era of Batman. And the movie that did who knows what to Tommy Lee Jones and Jim Carrey's personal relationship. Dragon, I've honestly got a lot to say about this, so I'm gonna jump to you first for your thesis, and then I'll jump in. Thesis and nostalgia, because I'm sure you have nostalgia for this, as do I.
So yeah, bags of nostalgia on this one. It was a very well rewatched VHS tape. As were the original four Batman movies. You had '89 Returns, Forever, and Robin.
Mhm.
So I got a lot of appreciation for the movie, despite its faults. Because for two reasons. I think on the kind of the primordial nostalgic level, let's call it. At the time, this was like the closest attempt that we had to. This is gonna sound like a stretch, folks, but again, I want you to just again like 30 years ago, okay? This just kind of like the closest attempt that we had to Batman the Animated Series in live action. With a studio mentality, mind you. I want to emphasize that this is like kind of like a like the old like the studio not quite getting the subtleties or the appeal of Batman the Animated Series. Just like here's what's popular based on the Kenner toy line. Let's kind of do that. So that's kind of before we went full tilt with it with Batman Robin, but let's just say that was kind of the appeal to me as a kid watching this movie, where it felt like this was like kind of somewhat close. It wasn't Phantasm, obviously, but this felt like if we did Batman in live action as kind of close to the animated series, it feels like this at least is a step in that direction. And I do realize the irony in saying that, given that, we don't really have the animated series as we have it without Keaton Batman. I do understand that, but just, I'm just saying with a very 90s era Batman after the animated series is a thing. And it feels like, Kilmer is very much cut from the cloth if we're trying to do a Conroy Batman. That's kind of always what kind of stuck with me with Batman Forever. The other thing, too, is that I've always felt Batman Forever, the goods always been over. There's a lot of good in this movie, and it always gets overshadowed by Batman and Robin. And the thing is, Batman and Robin, they doubled down on Forever's weak points. Which again, there are some weak points to Forever, but again, it's not overwhelming to the movie. And basically, Batman and Robin took what if we just started from the weak points and just expanded upon them for a whole. So ultimately, Joel Schumacher, I think he really demonstrated with Batman Forever how adaptable Batman can be. Adaptable, can up to interpretation. Like this is Schumacher putting his stamp on the character, and this is the thing we've always seen with various, decades in comics with Batman. But this is very much kind of bringing it. This is the first time we really had like an on-screen Batman that really showed like here's the complete other direction we can take it in. That's not just 60s Batman, which basically brings him to the screen in the first place. Essentially our 80s, '89 Batman, or Tim Burton Batman, which is very much like, okay, we're doing kind of the Miller era of Batman on film to a degree, at least in terms of tone. And then we go in a complete different direction, saying it's kind of neither one way or the other from the previous two. It's kind of a hybrid, but it's very much it's a very theatrical Batman, which I'm sure we'll get into. But Schumacher, when you look back on this movie, it really feels like, and I never really put this together until I really kind of like look back on the movie through all the behind the scenes and stuff as a kid, where Michael Uslan. I love Michael Uslan. The man is like to me, he's the godfather of Batman. He's essentially, I was lucky enough to meet the man. He's kind of the closest I'm ever going to get to meeting the man who made Batman, in my opinion. He's a man who made Batman in media, so he's very important. And he very much likened the making of this movie to, well, he very much likened kind of what this movie's going for to. It's kind of Batman transitioning from the late 30s to kind of that late 40s, early 50s period of Batman. Not quite the full-on Silver Age. Like, we're not being space aliens yet, but right before. It's like introduction to Robin. Like, this is like Batman making the shift from lone vigilante to crime fighter, and that's kind of what this. Again, this is like a Schumacher-esque update on that early transitional period of Batman. I mean, this movie gave us Robin on the big screen, which still hasn't quite been done. We've gotten close. We haven't quite done it yet properly. We've gotten the costume and we've gotten a Robin. We haven't put a Robin in a costume yet, but this movie did it.
Right, right.
So, again, just a lot of. So I've always had a lot of love for Batman Forever. Got a lot right. Not everything. Got a lot right. It's fun. I just really enjoy it. And I look back on it and I have a good time watching it. More than I can say for Batman and Robin, but Forever's the gem that kind of got lost in the sands of time.
All right. So Dragon, I'm sure that this has been brought up before, but I am someone, and I will get into my nostalgia for this movie, and I do have nostalgia for it, but I am someone who, and this is going to be basically the baseline for our conversation. I figured it would be, and your response is, yeah, pretty much confirms it. I prefer Batman and Robin. I'm sorry. Batman and Robin to me is like unabashedly, like, it is 60s Batman brought to like spectacular 90s production value life. It is full-blown cheese. I love the Schwarzenegger bits. I love the corny acting. I love how out of place Clooney is as Batman, but at the same time, I feel like Clooney does have an Adam West energy about him. Here's the deal. I do agree with you that this movie does have some good Batman the Animated Series vibes. Ironically enough, I think one of the weakest elements of this movie, which I'm sorry, for me, it is Chase Meridian. I'm just not a fan of her character. But I'm not going to lie, she does bring out interesting things with Batman's character here. And certainly out of the 4 90s Batman movies, this is absolutely the one where we explore his psyche the most. So I got to give this movie credit for that. Absolutely. I guess where my reservation comes from is that I feel like as good as some of the stuff is with Batman's psyche, and there is good stuff in there to be had, and I'm sure we'll talk about it. I just think the goofy stuff in here is too goofy. Dragon, I'm going to give you a piping hot take. I don't know if you're ready for it. Are you ready for it?
No, I'm not ready for it, but go ahead.
This might be my absolute least favorite Jim Carrey performance.
Okay, that's insane. Really? Least
I
favorite?
think that Jim Carrey is so over the top.
So you're saying you prefer Mr. Popper's Penguins to Batman Forever?
I'm saying I haven't seen Mr. Popper's Penguins,
but
I think Jim Carrey would probably be more tolerable. Dragon, Jim Carrey in this movie is so over the top that he gives me a migraine, and I can just say I feel Tommy Lee Jones' pain.
Oh, come on, that's not fair.
They're on the scene together.
Come on, that's not fair.
I'm sorry, Dragon.
Tommy brought that on himself, though.
I'm putting my foot down on this. I really don't like Jim Carrey in this movie. I'm sorry. I know that's an unpopular opinion. I know that he's like a beloved icon of the 90s, but for me, I feel like his presence in this movie is kind of what drags down and almost nullifies the really good actual character stuff we get with Batman. And that's why I prefer Batman and Robin, is that Batman and Robin absolutely knows what it is. Batman and Robin is a celebration of all things Batman camp. This can't decide if it wants to be campy or if it wants to be a serious meditation on the Batman psyche. And of course, we're going to get a actual serious meditation on the Batman psyche with Nolan. So this just kind of exists in this weird sort of in-between space for me. It's always been my least favorite of the 4 90s Batman movies. Well, 89 and then 90s.
Yeah, I know. It's always on the bubble. Isn't that frustrating?
I know. It's stupid.
Because it feels like we can just say Batman in the 90s, but we can't quite say that. Legally, we can't say that.
That being said, I do have mad nostalgia for this, dude. Honestly, man, I really think that this might be the absolute genesis of me as a little kid knowing about a movie before it actually came out and being hyped about it. Because I do remember the marketing for this movie. I remember the Two-Face poster, or just this poster that we're seeing right now, and being visually captivated by the Two-Face design. I remember as a kid, I was very excited about Jim Carrey Riddler. I had seen The Mask at that point, so I was into that. I honestly think the title Batman Forever just got my fucking Bart Simpson little kid, 90s little kid brain going. I thought that was a really cool title, and honestly, Dragon, I'm curious because obviously you're a gadget guy and whatnot. I'm curious how much you agree with this statement. I think out of all the Batman movies of this era, this might be the best use of the Batmobile. I think the Batmobile has some really, really standout stuff. Not to mention, of course, the Batplane and Batboat that we get later on.
Well, at least it doesn't kill anyone, so we have that going.
I just think, like, by and large, Batman's toys in this movie are in full display. And I will say that they are used better and more plot relevant than they are in Batman and Robin, where Batman and Robin, of course, we are just at the point where it's like, make a toy out of it. And Dragon, the only other thing that I want to mention here that I'm not going to get a chance to mention anywhere else. Do you remember? I doubt you ever saw it, but do you remember anything in like the Batman fan zeitgeist about Six Flags putting on Batman Forever themed stunt shows?
Well, I do remember the Batman stunt show, and it for a while it very much was. I don't know if it was. I don't know if it was just coincidental or it was direct, but again, it very much felt like the Schumacher Batman. That was. Do you know if they rethemed the stunt show?
Not to my knowledge. To my knowledge, it only had one iteration, and at least at Six Flags Marine World at the time, and that iteration was definitely Batman Forever. It had Riddler and Two-Face.
Yeah. I know there was a Batman. That was like another way of kind of summing up this movie. This movie does feel very much kind of like the Batman stunt show is a movie.
It totally does, yeah.
At least the majority. All the action very much
feels
was
like your stunt show a water ski show?
No, mine was basically mine was essentially it's like the backlot. The backlot made up to look like kind of like what we see. A lot of the death traps in this movie look like, kind of alleyways and scaffolding and stuff. So
that is the cool thing about my stunt show, because Six Flags Marine World, now Discovery Kingdom, that is located on a lake. There's a lake that kind of like borders the park, and there is a ski stadium there. And essentially, what our Batman Forever stunt show was essentially like a very, very, very light Six Flagsy version of the Waterworld stunt show at Universal, where it had the jet skis and the pyro and everything. Didn't have a full-blown seaplane in the finale, but anyways, I wanted to just kind of reminisce about that a little bit. I'm sure there's other things that we'll talk about. Val Kilmer is fantastic as Batman in this movie, and I'm sure we will sing his praises throughout this podcast. I do really actually surprisingly think that the Dick Grayson stuff in this movie holds up. I especially love his dynamic with Alfred. I'm sure we'll get into that as well.
Oh,
yeah. Dick Grayson in this movie, absolutely better than he is in Batman and Robin. I'll give you that much. In Batman and Robin, his character is very much a downgrade from how he was in this movie.
Yeah. Plus, he's not wearing rubber lips.
Right. Oh, God. Okay. So before we get into background, let's just go through the comments. I'm surprised that Code Geass is the only one who's commented. He says, I don't think that Val Kilmer gets enough respect for what a really good job he did as Batman, particularly the Bruce Wayne side of the character.
I will go as far as that he might be the most underrated Batman.
I would go as far as to say he might actually be the single best Batman.
Really? Across everything?
Not
obviously
Conroy.
Not. Well, I know that Conroy being
but
Conroy.
Live action, yeah, maybe. Honestly, I just think I feel like he gets he's a great kind of he has that Christian Bale kind of dark side to him, but he's also got the Michael Keaton kind of more lighthearted approach. I don't know. I think he's a really good middle ground for everything that we need in a good Batman.
Yeah. No one ever understands the subtlety of what Kilmer brought to it. It's always it's got to be Keaton because he was the first one. He was really
I've never respect to Keaton for sure. I've never viewed Keaton as my definitive Batman. But I didn't necessarily grow up. I more grew up with Batman Returns than Batman 89. Batman 89, I'm sure we brought this up before. That's probably the one out of the four I've watched the least.
Really, the least?
Yeah, out of the four, I think. Probably.
I don't know.
I was a big Batman Returns kid,
No,
honestly.
I know you had a lot of mad love for Returns. I
Which,
didn't think.
like, I mean, that goes to show you the person that I turned into as an adult. That maybe explains some things that I was more of a Batman Returns kid and not a Batman '89 kid. But I
That
digress.
explains the vinyl and the whip for sure. Yeah.
Oh God. All right. Kogias also says Val Kilmer had charm and handsomeness to pull off the bachelor part of Bruce Wayne, while also having the heart and empathy needed to be a mentor to Robin.
Yep.
Absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. Batman Forever is the best solo live action Batman film of the last 30 years, in my opinion. Cannot agree to that. It's we're not going to touch the
Plus,
Dark
I
Knight.
don't know if you can technically call it a solo because I mean it does get a sequel, so I don't know.
And you've got Robin right in it. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't.
He also says, considering how most live action versions of Harvey Dent get little, if any, screen time as Two-Face, Tommy Lee Jones is arguably still the best.
Okay, come on. Now you're just come on.
I mean, Tommy Lee Jones in this movie, I will say this much, is that I used to have a big problem with him. Now, like I said, I think my problem is more with Jim Carrey.
I can't believe you making a turn like that. I really can't. I'm just gonna say
the
it.
thing with Tommy Lee Jones is like Tommy Lee Jones is absolutely out of his element, but he's having such a fun time.
I know he's having a miserable time. What are you talking about?
Okay, that's not the right. I don't know. In his performance, it comes off like he's having a fun time.
Okay.
I know he was having a miserable time, but in his performance, I don't know. Like, there's something about it's certainly not Harvey Dent Two-Face in the way that we want that character to be. But my God, Jim Carrey, I feel like at this point, I could just Dragon with Jim Carrey. You know what? I'll save it.
Yeah, you can tell what sides we're coming down on this one, folks.
Jim Carrey's ego is just on full display in this movie. That's all I'll say.
Oh yeah, because the Riddler's all about subtlety and not having ego, right? Yeah.
All right. Let's see. Kogia says Billy D. Williams could have been cast.
That is true.
Could have been the best live action Two-Face if he got the chance to play the role.
Yep.
Absolutely agree there. It is a shame that we did not get to see him.
Well, he did eventually get to play the role once,
which is like, I wish he had more to do in that movie. It's a fun little Easter egg if you're looking for it.
If anyone would like to see him, they did a really great comic that's in the Tim Burton 80. It basically is kind of Batman. It's called Batman. Well, there's Batman Echoes, but the one before it, I think they still called it Echoes. The point being, there's a Batman '89 comic that Sam Hamm wrote and Joey Quinones did the art for that does the whole Billy D. Williams, Harvey Dent turning in the Two-Face story. So it's really good.
Nice. Also, we got Eli of Little Blue Productions asking about the director's cut. Dragon, if you have anything to say on that within your background, then feel free to save it for background.
Mm-hmm.
So go ahead. Just jump into background then.
Okay. So essentially, here's how we get Batman Forever. So Batman Returns essentially scared McDonald's and the advertisers. To basically put it bluntly, it scared McDonald's. There was a whole toy thing where I think the toys were made. I want to say I don't know what the status of. I think the toys were released, but I think it was
the toys were definitely released. They absolutely were. Yeah,
the toys were released, but it was very much like a marketing nightmare where like we have had no toys for a movie that's essentially upsetting the parents and kind of scaring the kiddies off with like all the Dark Penguin stuff. Catwoman's eating birds. It's a whole thing. So this led to the need,
like wall-to-wall sexual innuendo.
Yeah, it's the whole thing. Fred's hand, you name it. The point being, it's the studio wanted to go in a new direction, and like for example, Tim Burton was ready and eager to do. Well, I don't know if eager. Tim Burton. It's kind of hard to say eager with Tim Burton. Period. The point being, Tim Burton was
true.
He was ready. He was in the motions. He was ready to do Batman 3, and basically the studio kind of, in a very polite way, from what I understood, the way Tim Burton kind of describes it, as they kind of nudged him for, maybe do something else. Essentially, it was like they kind of, Tim Burton didn't argue, and he went on to do other great movies. But they discouraged him from doing a third Batman. Mark Canton, one of the producers, he worked with Joel Schumacher recently. Just Joel Schumacher around the time he had done Flatliners, he had done Falling Down, which I really loved. And the main thing got him the gig, and I believe that Mark Hamill worked with him on, was Lost Boys. Lost Boys was the
Mm.
biggie. Lost Boys was like the thing of like, okay, maybe this guy can, made a very popular movie, very colorful, very flashy, very, had the tone of like, it's
Mhm.
kind of dark, but it's also fun, which
Also
is
shot
sent.
at the Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk. Shout out.
Yeah, well, yeah, we have some production stuff I think you're gonna like about this one with that too. But
Mhm.
yeah, so essentially, so Lost Boys was the big. Okay, this is the proof of concept here. He's the tone we're looking for here. So Canton brings on Joel Schumacher. Joel Schumacher, he's a Batman fan, which Tim Burton was. He was barely a bat. Tim Burton goes back and forth on it because he always said he loved the Killing Joke and Dark Knight Returns, but in reality, from what I understand, I don't think he really read those comics. I think he just like was pointed to those comics when he was doing the movie. So jury's a little out on that one, but the point being, Schumacher, he's more familiar with the material. Is my point here. So he wanted to do Batman Year One. He wanted to do something very much in line with Year One, and essentially the reason for that is he wanted to do a Bruce Wayne centric movie, a movie that kind of puts Batman, Bruce Wayne in central focus, which we haven't really done up to that point because the villains keep stealing the show.
Mhm.
Studio wanted it to be lighter. They wanted the more Lost Boys kind of publicity of it all, so they kind of they discouraged them from doing it, basically making Christopher Nolan's movie before it dropped on his lap. They wanted to say, no, 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 save that for Nolan. Not so many words, but essentially, like, no, no, we'll leave it for Fincher or Nolan or somebody.
Mhm.
And like I said, Michael Uslan, I love this because Uslan again, you got to remember, Uslan campaigned for years and put a lot of hard work into making Batman dark. Because again, before that, they had the '60s Batman was trying to get out of the public consciousness. So '89 was his big victory. So the change in tone, Uslan, he understood. He understood the studio's position of okay, yeah, we scared off the marketing thing. The movie making is a business. Uh, but again, I think he hoped for, and what we kind of ultimately got with Forever was a balance. He wanted to we kind of lit a candle amidst the darkness here of like, let's go in the directions of the '40s and '50s era Batman. Let's take an opportunity. Burton tried introducing Robin, but he never got around to it. Let's actually do that. And who's a villain that was introduced around the time of Robin? Will it be Riddler? So it's kind of a graduation from kind of the late '30s, early '40s kind of Tim Burton, dark Batman who's he's blowing up people with bombs.
Mhm.
So Keaton gets scared off by the new direction, so they need a new Batman. So Ethan Hawke was actually the studio's first choice. They wanted Ethan Hawke to be Batman, but Ethan Hawke said no. So
Ethan Hawke would have been interesting.
no, of course. I mean, I think he had the chops for it,
Oh,
but
definitely, yeah.
I think he just didn't want to do it because it wasn't really in vogue yet.
Mhm.
He was waiting for Moon Knight. That's what he was waiting for.
God.
But Val Kilmer, he had done Tombstone. Tombstone was like the big movie he did right
Right,
before
right.
this, and everyone, of course, is it's tremendous. It's possibly his great. It's one of, if not, I still think his performance of Moses in Prince of Egypt is one of his best performances. But so Tombstone is like that's the one they're going to remember him for, aside from this.
Mhm.
So he was actually in I think it was in I think it was in I think it was South America. I think he was in South America, and he was in a bat. He was like scouting a location for another movie, and he basically he was inside a bat cave when he got the call. So it was like it was so serendipitous. When he got like the call, like, hey, we'd like you to be Batman.
Mhm.
It's like he's surrounded by bats in a cave. It's like if that's not an omen for this man must play Batman, I don't know what is.
Right.
Because we have that, and we have Nolan going through like the '60s, the '60s Batcave from the entrance to the Batcave from the '60s Batman show. I mean, these are like the moments that show you, okay, it's something that's fate's at work here. They looked around for Robin. They actually started in the UK. They actually had a lot of UK actors initially for Robin. They were looking at Jude Law, Ewan McGregor, and Alan Cumming.
Jude Law, that's an interesting choice.
I still think Jude Law would have made a really good Scarecrow, but
Oh, yeah. Oh, God, he could still make a really good Scarecrow.
absolutely. So they were kind of shopping around. I forget if it was I forget if this I want to say this happened before Batman Forever. There was the Four Musketeers. I'm sorry, the Three Musketeers, and they ended up having I forget if the movie was called Four Musketeers because eventually there's a fourth Musketeer in the movie. But that's the one that's where I want to say that's where they got Chris O'Donnell from because he was
Mhm.
in that movie and he was really good. It was him and Oliver Platt, good movie. Anyway, so let's see. So again, so Jim Carrey at this time, of course, this was. Yeah, remember this is '90. This is around '95, and Carrey, he had just come off of. By the time they're making the movie, this is like right after Ace Ventura had come out. So this is like the beginning, like right in the middle of the '94 splash of like the three movies in a row that put Jim Carrey on the map. So it's like
Dragon,
they
I'm
want.
sorry, but that to me is what I'm talking about when I say like you can kind of feel his ego. Like he kind of feels like, all right, I can basically do anything now because of that. I don't know.
So if they come to him for a role, how is that his ego at play there? It's
Yeah, I'm just saying. Anyways,
okay. The point being, they kind of hedge their bets with Jim Carrey, because again, for the course correction, it feels like let's get Jim Carrey in the role here. I always heard that they went to Robin Williams, but they kind of went to Robin Williams for every Batman part, so it's kind of hard to kind of say how genuine those attempts were at Robin Williams.
hmm.
It sounds like they probably. I
I
think Robin
still
Williams.
would have loved to see Robin Williams play Nolan's Joker, dude. That was my dream casting back in the day.
I'm pretty sure Robin Williams was like entertained for the Riddler. He was like the first choice, but then it just kind of fell through. But again, I can't remember how much that was like Burton's maybe potential version of Riddler had they done a Batman 3,
Mhm.
or if that was, I forget how much carryover there was on that. So I can't say if that was Schumacher's like intent maybe. But anyway, so Jim Carrey was kind of there. He was kind of the box office insurance to a degree there. Tommy Lee Jones, he worked with Schumacher in a movie called The Client. So that's how Tommy Lee Jones enters the picture. And Tommy Lee Jones' son loved Batman. So, that's he very much took on the role. He says, "Hey, they want me for Two-Face. Oh my God, Harvey Dent, Dad, you got to take this."
Right, right.
You know. So let's see. So there was he Tommy Lee Jones. He got really grumpy with the makeup. Rick Baker did the makeup on still
The makeup's
incomparable.
great, but I could totally see it being hell.
Yeah, so it was kind of a combination of that, and we'll get in that, and he hated Jim Carrey. Basically, he really
Yep.
which again, I think really is just the fact. I don't know that I've always kind of come down on. I think that was Tommy Lee Jones's ego in terms of this guy's kind of showing me up. I'm the bigger star. I should it's Two Face. I should have this movie's all about. Ultimately, we're going to get into this. This movie is all about twos when you really boil it down. So it does feel kind of like it should be Two Face's movie to a degree. But yeah, so ultimately, I think he's very much. I don't know if he's intimidated by Jim Carrey or he's just kind of maybe a little bit of jealous of like, hey, this guy's, this the young kid on the scene. They put him in the movie. He's getting, like there's question marks all over this movie. Where's my movie? So he very much made some acting choices that I think he regretted ultimately.
Hmm. Hmm.
But yeah, and that's all we can say is poor Billy D. Williams. Okay, so Bob Ringwood and Jose Fernandez, they did this. They built the suits. They built the suits in all the original '90s, the '89 and '90s Batman movies. Now Jose Fernandez, amazing suit designer. This guy, fabricator. This guy's great. The reason I'm talking about this is I'm explaining how we get the nipples. So so Schumacher wanted something very very kind of very form fitting. And Bob Ringwood could be kind of creepy. I'm just gonna throw it out there. Bob Ringwood could be kind of creepy. Like he's Joel Schumacher at this time. He's very much kind of a he's a bon vivant playboy. Historically, like Schumacher has like a lot of notches on his bedpost. I'm gonna say that much. It's all men, but it's like a lot of notches on his bedpost. You know. So with that in mind, like Ringwood's unsubtly like giving him like essentially like playgirls and stuff. Like we want him to look like this. And Fernandez basically took it. Okay, I don't want to use that when I'm sculpting the bat suit. When I'm sculpting the bat suit, I would basically Fernandez applied a logic. Okay, you want something form fitting and very macho. Let's call it. Let's go like Roman with it. Like kind of Roman armor, which Roman armor did build in like kind of the nipple sculpt. So
Sure, sure.
that's where it comes from. That's why we have the bat nipples, folks. It's not just completely random. At least Fernandez tried. Okay, I just want to throw it out there. He tried. Honestly, Batman Forever, I think it looks pretty good. At least before we do the stupid sonar suit, which I'll rant about later.
Hmm.
So Val Kilmer, they build this suit. Looks great. He kind of hates wearing it justifiably because it's really hot in that suit. It's very restrictive towards the acting, and it's over 100 pounds. So he started out doing his stunts, but at a certain point, he just could not. The poor guy just could not do it. So all the rest of the stunts, like full on, like the reason we have amazing, you'll notice we have a lot more Batman fighting in costume than we did with Keaton, and that's because we had like full-on stunt guys doing these action sequences in these super heavy costumes. Very impressive. Keith Campbell and Alex Daniels doing all these stunts as Batman. So the opening of the movie, that's Kilmer. Everything else, stunt guys.
Nice, nice.
So they shot Long Beach, California, believe it or not. So they shot not at a sound stage, but in a giant spruce goose kind of hangar. Like
Oh, okay, okay. That
so
makes sense.
that's where
Yeah.
they shot. Now they had a earthquakes to worry about though. So what they did was the Batcave set is suspended by a crane. If you can believe it or not, the giant Batcave set is like suspended by suspended by like a cranes in case like the earth shakes, so the thing won't, all the set won't be destroyed.
Hmm.
All right, let's see. So Elliot Goldenthal did the score. He did an amazing job on the score. I feel. So it's not Elfman. It's very it's very triumphant. There's a lot of anyway. Goldenthal worked with I think worked with Schumacher once or twice.
I low key actually like this Batman theme better than the Danny Elfman Batman theme. I don't know. I love how triumphant it is. I love the march like quality to it.
I love when he goes. I don't want to say operatic because I mean the Elfman score is more gothic. This is kind of gothic, but with kind of again, you're right. There's a triumphant
It feels like cinematic. It feels more cinematic than Elfman's score. I mean, full respect to Elfman's score, of course.
Well, obviously, first of all, I mean, again, Elfman, I would always say got overshadowed by Shirley Walker and her company in terms of like her building off what Elfman did. So Elfman's very key and important for us getting kind of the sound of Batman. And even with this, I think you can see hints of Elfman, but then we add like a giant orchestra to it. There's like a bombast. There's like you're right, it's cinematic. There's a lot of CinemaScope built into the audio, one could say. Certain moments in this movie, I think, just kind of like it's like the hills from the Emperor's New Groove. It just sings, man. Anyway, so let's talk about the extended cut real quick here. So there does exist an extended cut of Batman Forever that reportedly is really good.
Well, that's the one with the horrifying like human bat or whatever, right? Am I right about that?
No, right. I'm about to get to that. So
okay.
So there's an extended cut of the movie, which essentially it has. I want to say the scenes that are in this extended cut you can actually find on like the home video releases as deleted scenes, but they never have been edited into the movie on like they'd never been re-released because Warner Brothers they refuse to do it. They've been campaigning for it ever since Schumacher passed away, and I think like 2020. But they really apparently the remaster would be costly. So that's what the cover story is. Blame Zaslav, blame whoever. Around 2000, that's when we would have had Zaslav. So I'm just saying, let's go throw it out there. But yeah, so essentially there is an extended cut of the movie in which we see a little bit more Two-Face. Like I want to say we we saw him like escape Arkham, or at least we had more of a kind of a build up for him escaping Arkham at the top of the movie. And the big thing is that when Bruce Wayne at the low of lows before he and Robin go off to save the day in Act 3, we were going to really get in the psychology of Bruce Wayne, and we're going to flesh out kind of the repressed trauma of his parents' murder, which would have brought him to the Batcave, in which we would have seen the giant Rick Baker Bat pup. I'm going to get into this scene later on, but let's just say this is it would have been really interesting and really cool. And Kevin Smith has tried to, I don't know if he succeeded. He had a screening, I think, of the director's cut one time. Because it was filmed, though. It's not a home video release, so he's able to show it. But even then, like other times people have tried to screen this movie, like Warner Brothers has blocked it almost every time. So they really don't want this getting out for stupid reasons. But again, if you want to see those scenes, I mean, you can find them. I'm pretty sure you can find like some like kind of a rougher version of them online because it's not remastered like theatrically. Like I'm sure the actual extended cut is, but it's like the scenes look good.
Right.
Okay, so a lot of toys, a lot of hype for this. The tradition of all these 90s era Batman movies, they come out, people are so psyched to see them, they keep stealing all the bus posters. That still happened here on this one.
That was even happening like in the post-apocalypse in I Am Legend with that Batman versus Superman billboard.
Oh, yeah. Again, they always steal the bus posters.
Mm-hmm.
So Warner Brothers, they insisted on kind of an equivalent to the Prince music, which we need like a big hit song to go with this. So they that's where we get Kissed by a Rose. They're essentially one of Prince's songs. So we have Seal doing "Kiss by a Rose."
And honestly, I think "Kiss by a Rose" is probably the definitive, like, it's up there as far as like songs that are connected, like best songs that are directly connected to a superhero movie.
Oh, yeah. So the movie, as you guessed, a massive success. And just to go full circle with it here, McDonald's, because they were playing scared. This is really funny to me. I don't know if it was like a deliberate choice or just because they were playing scared. I know. I want to know if you remember this. Okay. So McDonald's put
Was
out
it
these.
Burger King that took over the rights?
No, 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 no. I'm
Was it
saying
Burger
that
King? Okay.
no, it's still McDonald's. But here's what
Okay.
happened. So McDonald's didn't put out toys for Batman Forever.
Oh, they
They
put out like cups or something?
They no, not here's the nowadays they put out lame cups. This was
Mhm.
like, now they put out exquisitely made French glasses.
Oh my god.
Do you remember like the crystal glasses from McDonald's for Batman? There were like four of them you could get,
I
and they were
don't
all
remember those. I definitely remember like the Disney animated movies where they had like I had a Beauty and the Beast one where it was just like a very exquisite like recreation of the posters
yeah.
on the glass.
So that's the thing. So they kind of did that. I don't know if it was like a stylistic thing they were just trying out, or in the '90s, or if this was just this. I don't know if it just feels like, man, we kind of got burned last time we did Batman in toy form. Let's just do something at least we know will kind of be nice and sell enough.
Mhm.
So the McDonald's glasses. There's four. It's Batman, Robin, Two Face, and Riddler. I actually have one or two of them. I either have Two Face or I have Two Face and Riddler. But they're really not seriously. These were high quality glasses they put out, like little like tiny mugs almost. They were
Right,
really
right.
beautiful,
Yeah.
like actual etched like etchings and carvings on them.
Mhm.
So they sold out in 2 days.
Oh wow.
Everywhere, like all of them, they sold out in 2 days because again the movie was that popular, and there was like no toy. Again, it was like the Buzz Lightyear thing, and they all sold out instantly.
And so that's probably why when they went to go make Batman and Robin, like the
Hmm.
toy thing was like their priority.
Yep. So they rushed the sequel. They rushed the sequel into the works and toys, and well, we know how that went. That's pretty much it.
It went fantastically well. No, I'm kidding. All right. Let's see. So we have Richard's victims, and there's
Oh, we can only say he's here.
yeah, well, yeah, I know. I'm trying to go. There's a lot of comments here.
Yeah.
I don't need to go through all of them, but do you know what Bat Wheels is, Dragon? Because
Yeah.
what is Bat Wheels? Ethan Hawke voiced Batman and Bat
I didn't
Wheels.
know he was voicing Batman and Bat. I haven't watched Bat Wheels. Bat Wheels is essentially kind of like the kiddie version of that. I think you can. God knows where it is now with Zaslav. I forget if Bad Wheels is on Max or not, but essentially it's kind of like it's like cars with Batman vehicles. So it's like the Batmobile is like a little sentient, little cute crime fighter, along with like Robin and Batgirl. They'll have vehicles. They're all kind of vehicle crime fighters.
Mhm. Okay, Richard's victims is saying how I feel about this movie is how people like Batman and Robin people who like Batman and Robin feel about that one. Does that make sense? Yeah, it does. I mean, I feel like I'm kind of like one of the lone wolves where it's like I actually prefer this movie to Batman and Robin, or I'm sorry, I prefer Batman and Robin to this movie. But
So
yeah,
he's the Clooney of the wolves, not the Brad Pitt.
yes, yes, that's a beautiful analogy, Dragon.
Yeah.
Let's see. Kogia says I think that Joel Schumacher was a better director for Batman than Nolan or Matt Reeves because there's none of the boringly grounded stuff in his films. I mean, for a pure comic book accurate version of what Batman is, I honestly find that hard to argue with. The problem is that what Batman is has evolved so much over time. But for the time period where he was at the time in pop culture, I do think Joel Schumacher was a pretty perfect directing choice. Richard Victim says, I like Jim Carrey's Riddler as an over-the-top comedic villain, but I'm so happy we get a more serious take in the Matt Reeves movie. Agreed. I'm not going to read off the Code Geass and Richard's Victim's drama. Okay, Little Blue says, I agree with Richard's victims. There's no topping Elfman's music and score of Batman. I really enjoy his score for Batman Returns. Yeah, the opening credits music is indeed so good. It is better than Harry's Pie. All right. Haven't you thought?
I didn't really read that part of it, Tiki.
All right. Eli says, I have those glass cups. My dad got them and now they're in my possession.
There you
Awesome.
go.
Awesome. And Richard Victim says, all my comments deserve to be read because they're all high concept comedy critiques. Well, you know what? We're getting a lot of comments tonight, so I will do my best. All right. Where do you want to start, Dragon?
So let's talk about just kind of Schumacher's style and kind of setting the tone. So a little bit of the opening, but just overall like Schumacher's kind of vibe on this. So like I said, it's a transitional film for Batman. We're looking for a balance between gothic and bigger than life, or the way I like to look at. If I had to put a label on what Schumacher's Batman sells, it's like basically kind of going off the Nolan, like, theatricality and deception. This is all about theatricality. That's what this movie is. This is a very theatrical, big, like the pomp and circumstance. It's like a very theatrical Batman. It's it's Batman at the theater mixed in with the Six Flags stunt show. That's what this movie is.
Totally. What do you think about the opening gag?
So I love. Okay, so the opening. I love how we set the tone with that, where we have. We have.
I also love how it's just like it's a built-in fucking McDonald's commercial.
Well, so you're right. I want to get to that.
Shameless.
Okay, so here's what I love about that. Okay, so it's kind of like when they're making Toy Story, there was the big. There's like a lot of pressure on like what is our character's first line going to be. In that regard, we kind of have that with Batman here. Is that I feel it's this thing that sets such a tone with we have the suit up, we have the Bat March in the Elliot Goldenthal score, and then we have the drive through. We have like this epic build up. We see the Batmobile, everything in its glory. Batman looks really cool, and then we have like just Alfred interrupting. Can I persuade you to take sandwich, sir? And this is like, okay, drive through. So it's very
a good tone setter, I think.
Because again, we set up that okay, this is going to feel like Batman. We're going a little more again. Everything feels like Batman as you remember him, but there's something a little different. That joke kind of hits it in that one. It's a fun reassurance to McDonald's right off the top, which I think is just hysterical. It's them saying, "Yes, we know, Batman Returns scared everyone. We know." We're going to ease up a little bit, but here's the thing: while it's a gag. And while it's like this early in the movie, it's a gag that feels authentic to Batman and Alfred. We've seen the animated series. Batman and Alfred Alfred's always trying to give him to eat something. It's marketing, but it's a joke that feels on brand for him. So this is the tone that we're striking. Where yes, again, compared to Batman and Robin are going to go off the reservation with the comedy again, intentionally or not. There's a debate there, but here. Again, it feels on brand. The characters still feel, this is like.
I feel like there's definitely individual moments that mirror each other within Batman and Robin and Batman Forever that Batman Forever definitely does better. I think this is absolutely one of them. I think this moment is way better than I want a car. Shakes dig the car. This is why Superman works alone.
See, that's unsubtle.
Not to mention the suit up sequence is a lot more subtle. We don't get like the explicit like bat ass and bat nipples like we do in Batman and Robin.
Yeah. Well, we kind of get it with the stupid sonar suit, but I blame the sonar.
No, we do. But you know what? That was Schumacher. Like, what are you gonna do, Dragon?
By the way, that was
have some fun.
It's funny. I heard that was a creepy Ringwood moment too. Like he was the one I want Batman. He wanted to accentuate Batman's butt. It was like, oh man, that's weird. But anyway, so but overall, so again, it feels like overall the tone that we're setting is this is Schumacher, his take on like that Dick Sprang era Batman. Where it's like Batman and Robin's going to be that late 50s and 60s. Like we're just going to go completely off the reservation. We're bringing in like the love lives of the Cape Crusaders, all this kind of stuff. But here, I mean, overall though, it just feels like okay. So it's Batman as we remember him, but we are going to brighten things up with Robin being introduced. So we kind of have to lay that foundation, which is kind of what we're doing with the Tony. Where Robin means things you get a little jokey and a little lighter. So we're building there. But again, we're doing it subtly, and just feels right. So again, we're hitting all the hallmarks here. Like I said, we have the Batman Alfred banner. We essentially have a Batman Gordon scene. Mind you, there's an interloper who we're going
Okay,
to.
we need to talk about, like, at least Pat Hingle gets a little bit of screen time in this movie, but dude, I'm sorry, Pat Hingle, he sucks as Gordon, man. He
Okay.
sucks.
Okay, I think look, I'm not going to pull rank on you here, Tiki, but just if anyone's going to have some some Hingle critiques, if I may.
Go ahead.
So yeah, the tragedy with Pat Hingle is that Pat Hingle is ordinarily a very good actor.
I will always know him as the narrator from The Land Before Time, and he was excellent in that role.
As we've confirmed, great actor with something like that. Now, regrettably, Pat Hingle, is Gordon again. At first glance, solid casting of a good actor. The problem is in all four of these movies, we never gave him substantial material.
He's a doofus. He's just consistently a doofus.
Well, it's not degenerately. He's a doofus. I'm going to tell you why. So 89. On the whole, it's like we don't really do a lot with Gordon, but at least he's on brand. Like he knows that some corruption going on. He's kind of hanging around Bruce Wayne. The character backstory that he had was pretty much the idea that Gordon was there on the scene when Bruce Wayne's parents were murdered. Like he's there. There's like a subtle like Easter egg in 89. The point being, Gordon's on brand the Burton films. He's got 89 probably the most returns. He has like one Batman Gordon scene. It goes by like that, but at least one scene. Right. This is what I'm saying. Each movie we keep sanding away anything that
progressively dowgraded. Yeah,
like we've been selling with them from the start. Mind you, there's only so much we do with Gordon at the start, and then after that, like I said, Commissioner Gordon's character I have a huge affinity for. I love him to pieces, and I want to be clear. As the Batman Animated Series demonstrate time and time again, a little Gordon goes a long way. We don't need much, but we need at least one good scene. The problem is, in this movie, Gordon's best scene to me, I will say it right now, I think the best Gordon moment in this whole movie is when, Batman gives him the thumbs up and he just says, yeah, go, when he's going through the bat signal.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that you could see Gary Oldman's Gordon do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's the thing. I mean, look, I will say this on the whole, though, okay? Batman Forever's character assassination for Commissioner Gordon, absolutely. But I mean, here at least, look, Gordon again. We kind of make him look buffoonish, but at least he's doing Gordon-like stuff. Like he's on the scene of the crime. He's giving Batman the debrief. It's kind of he shows up when the bat signal's on, but he looks silly when he shows up in his old man pajamas. I'm not crazy about it, but it's. Mm-hmm. At least that's what I'm saying. We just keep sanding away. It's not great, but thank God we got Gary Oldman, eventually. So, that was like literally Gordon stepping off the page. And then we had, J.K. Simmons and then, Jeffrey Wright. So we're stepping in the right direction. But, Hingle was always like, he was the starting point. We got to start somewhere. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Anyway, the point being, though, we have at least a Batman Gordon kind of scene per kind of the Batman formula. There is what we're hitting, and we have some great action stuff. So we're hitting again, kind of like a Bond, kind of the Bond to Batman comparison here. We're hitting the hallmarks of our franchise at the top before we go in our very stylistic directions.
Sure. All right, let's see some comments here. At least his Gordon has full confidence that Batman is the character Gordon should. Yeah. I mean, honestly, it's Batman and Robin, where it's like he has like 2 lines in that whole movie, and all of them are like, "Help us, Batman!"
It's not like his whole thing is, "Where'd they go? You let him get away."
Right, exactly.
The thing that will always hurt my soul is like, oh my God, this is so bad. Just Poison Ivy. Just like trying to seduce him. On second thought, like on one hand, like, well, at least you didn't kill him. It's like, I'm not too old for you. It's like, oh, just in the fact that it's like because we represent, we did him so dirty in these movies, we can't make Barbara his daughter. It's just
right, yeah.
God. Anyway.
Let's see. Richard's Victim says, in terms of working together, Reeves Batman had the best Gordon. Yeah, I hard agree, honestly. I mean, I love Gary Oldman Gordon. I think Gary Oldman Gordon is probably the definitive Gordon. But I would say, at least just as far as like the on-screen like Batman Gordon partnership, the Batman absolutely nailed it.
Love that scene in the GCPD where he's like, he calls him in there and he tells him to punch him. It's like, oh my God. You're right, though. Jeffrey Wright's fantastic.
All right, Eli, you don't have to tell me that's a nostalgia critic joke. I'll put it up here. He says Batman gives the thumbs up. Me.
There.
All right. Okay, so then we get into the opening heist scene, and I got to tell you, man, this is one of the things where I do actually think that the art museum heist, or the Museum of Natural History, whatever the fuck it is, the ice skate rink, the Batman on ice in Batman and Robin. I think that's the more memorable opening action set piece, and that set piece to me is I think all throughout Batman and Robin, we're channeling that 60s Batman energy. But you got to admit that opening like Batman on ice thing, that is 60s Batman to a T. That is 60s Batman in the 90s personified.
Well, no, yeah, it is, Tiki, but again, it's neither here nor there. I want to talk about this action scene.
All right, fair enough. One thing about this movie that I think is just kind of weak sauce, generally speaking, is the villain motivations. Like, Harvey Dent is such a rich, psychologically fascinating character that we do fucking nothing with. He is just Joker 2.0 in this movie.
Yeah, so to broach the subject of Two-Face here. So Two-Face in this movie, there are two, I'm still settling with these, but there are like two, in quotes, good Two-Face scenes before things go completely off a cliff for him, in my opinion, with Tommy Lee Jones' performance, okay? The introduction of Two-Face. So, well, first off, let me say this. I think it's a great choice. Two-Face, I feel, had we given, Tommy Lee Jones is a great choice for Two-Face if given time to develop that role. You get a sense that Tommy Lee Jones, we know for a fact, he's a great actor. He's played a lawyer. He could absolutely play, you get a sense the layers of Harvey Dent are there, and we kind of see glimmers of this in like the scene I'm talking about. The introduction of Two-Face is actually a legit Two-Face, because remember, he starts off as like Harvey Dent, like talking about how the doodah luck and all that.
Mm-hmm.
That feels very much on brand for like
I think all the stuff with the coin is about the closest we get to on brand Two-Face in this movie.
There is one very infamous scene with Two-Face later on that I think is just a betrayal of the character. But this, however, this is on brand. Like, he has a death trap. He's ranting to a victim about we're at the mercy of luck with the coin flip. On brand. Yeah, we have like a nod to the Long Halloween with like the very. I love how Schumacher, he replicated this perfectly, but in all the right implausible ways. The implausible courtroom scene of like they would have footage of this origin for Two-Face where it was like perfectly shot of like Batman diving in to try and help Harvey Dent after he's been scarred with the acid. Like, we see that on the TV real quickly. So I love that we have that scene in there because that's perfect. Looks great. But yeah, so just the opening action sequence, like with the banter for Two-Face, it's a bank theme. It's his second anniversary. This is a Two-Face like 2 years after his origin, which we then recapped on the TV. Batman, he's saving the young. This always cracked me up, by the way. The annoying guard character actor. He's it's like Gordon's like saying, "Oh, that will help you, young man." It's like, young man, the guy's got a hearing aid, and he's like,
that guy's a terror. And you know what? The Nostalgia Critic did review this movie somewhat recently, and he does make some really good points about this movie just having genuinely awful extras with their line deliveries.
Anyway, But yeah, so, I mean, like, on brand. I love Batman saving the guard. I love the helicopter thing feels a little bit like Dark Knight Returns, which I really appreciate. It's kind of like Two-Face in a helicopter.
Come on, it's not nearly as cool as Dark Knight Returns.
I didn't. Did you hear me say those words? Did you hear me say it was like measuring up to Dark Knight?
All right, I get what you're saying. Yeah,
saying I like that, like little nods here and there, a little Long Halloween, little. I know this came before Long Halloween. You know what I mean, like the Two-Face origin. We pay like brief lip service to like, this is the acid that made us who we are today. Though I have no compunction, cheesy line. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, look, compared to where we go with Two-Face in the movie, we're like, and me, compared to that.
No, you're right. Honestly, that I do think that's kind of what I was feeling when it comes to like Jim Carrey versus Tommy Lee Jones. It's like Jim Carrey pretty much annoyed me right from the jump on a rewatch. Whereas I think Tommy Lee Jones, he has a couple halfway decent scenes, but you're right. As the movie goes on, his performance just absolutely fucking disintegrates. I'm
I'm
not
just
gonna
saying,
lie
like, as in a
there.
bottle, this opening feels like Schumacher making a kind of like a Batman opening with a Batman adventure, which tells us a little bit about Two Face. We see him in action, and then we have the helicopter destroys the face of the statue of the Statue of Liberty in Gotham, essentially. Then we have that really cool money shot of like Batman emerging from the water, which was in the marketing. It still looks really cool, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
So as I'm saying, like we're hitting, it's that, and here's the other scene I was hinting at. Okay, so the I love the layer of Two Face where it's in again with the theatrical kind of like tone that we're setting here. It's like Two Face's layer split right down the middle. He's got the two malls with sugar and spice Drew buried
I
together.
do really love his design, his aesthetic. I agree. The henchmen are great. All around, just the aesthetic of him. I wish
Yeah,
the actual character writing fucking lived
of
up to the
course.
aesthetic because I think the aesthetic of him in this movie is awesome.
See,
Honestly.
to me, I think the movie, honestly, I think the movie kind of lived and died by Two Face because the movie's about duos. The movie's about, sorry, it's not just about duo. I'm saying there's a theme of two throughout the movie. Which, given that Two Face is in this movie, we have Batman kind of bridging out and taking on a partner and kind of a mentor mentee
Mhm,
relationship. The fact that we have two bad guys, all there
mhm.
seems to be a theme of twos in the movie that feels like Two Face should have taken, like kind of top billing in that regard. But beyond that, I really feel that Two Face could have been the glue for the movie if we actually developed him because I want to talk about Val Kilmer's Batman because this is kind of it's kind of
Sure.
integral to everything here. So first off, as we said, very underrated Batman. Kilmer, he brings a lot of depth. I mean, Kilmer himself in the Val documentary, kind of talked about playing Batman. He mentioned that the way he played Batman was it was soap opera acting, and that the suit did kind of limit him, so he kind of had to gestures. That's why Batman's striking these really great poses during these during kind of these conversations with Meridian and everything. So he's very much doing this. He's doing kind of soap opera acting, and I think, cheesy or not, he's making it really work. He's taking a stab at kind of what Conroy did in live action, which we had not had before, where it was like the duality of the two roles, which is kind of integral to the movie. Which again, with the Two Face of it all, it's Batman kind of coming to grips with two sides of himself, which kind of goes hand in hand with Two Face. I feel the origin stuff that we're doing with Batman is good, but I really wish the biggest missed opportunity I think we have in this movie is he should have been thinking about his parents and kind of the journal kind of plot line when when Dick Grayson lost his temper.
Yeah, totally,
Because
totally.
think about this, Tiki. Think about how this would have flowed. Okay, we would have. I'm not just trying to rewrite the movie. I'm just saying because all the pieces are there. It just feels like we kind of rearranged them, and maybe I don't know if the extended cut may have
Mhm.
experimented with this. I'm not sure, but it feels like
For all intents and purposes, I feel like they at least dabbled in it in the extended cuts.
yeah. So basically, Dick Grayson's parents die. Bruce Wayne is thinking back to this. He again conceivably would feel guilty about it because of Harvey's involvement in this. Had
Right.
we developed the Two Face, perhaps he's maybe again Batman at a point in this movie he tries to hang up, which I think the way it is presented in the movie doesn't make a lot of sense. Would have made a lot more sense if like he blames himself for the death of the Graysons because of how he kind of feels blamed for creating Two Face, and Batman's caused more problems than he solved. And this may have led to a disenfranchised Batman. Like all of these elements, I feel could have very much come together if we hinged upon a better, fleshed out, and more in the center focus Two Face.
I mean, even if we had like just a couple lines to just acknowledge that they were friends before, like
Well,
or that they had what?
there is, but it's not great.
No, I know there is one in the finished product, but yeah, you're right. It is very underdeveloped. I'm saying like actually have like a full conversation about that.
You're right. Which I think there was like a little bit of a Batman Dent conversation in the helicopter in the extended. But as I'm saying, it's the extended, but we
Mhm.
never see it. So, but yeah. So with sorry, more with Kilmer Batman before we transition to the other stuff. Just again, he
I
plays a
mean,
compelling.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
So traditionally, all the Batman villains, they always steal focus from Batman himself. Which this movie, where he's basically playing a more spelled out version of the duality that Conroy kind of brought to it. Which again goes in hand with kind of the soap opera acting he's kind of doing here. He looks great as both Batman and Bruce Wayne. He's a compelling Batman here because he's again we've condensed his plot because again we're missing we're kind of missing some pieces here and there, but he's it's Batman as is Batman kind of transitioning to this more public figure, which by Batman and Robin, he's going to be a full-on like 60s Batman public figure. But if you look at it, this movie is kind of the transition point between between Returns, being kind of like the dark vigilante who's like become a pariah, and now he's kind of like he's a little bit more kind of he's recognized, he's kind of lauded. He's not a full-on celebrity, but people are kind of cheering for him,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I can see that he's uncomfortable with it here, and I don't know, a lot of he's playing some nice subtleties to the role, but without spelling it out as we kind of do in other places.
Right, for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
Just what I was gonna say is that I think Kilmer, honestly, like he might not be the absolute like number one with a bullet best live action Batman. That's still up for debate. What I will say with him, though, pretty definitively, is I think that Val Kilmer toes the line between like the comic book kind of like exaggerated, larger than life version of Batman and the more grounded, like Nolanized, psychologically tortured Batman. He toes that line really well, and I feel like most Batman performances go one way or another, and I think that is honestly why I might still say that he might be the absolute best Batman performance in live action, is because of that kind of like that balancing act that he pulls. I really think he pulls it off like very, very well.
We were always at a distance with Keaton. I think we get a lot more in
Keaton's
Kilmer's
Bruce
head.
Wayne is like a nothing burger, honestly. Besides the "you want to get nuts, let's get nuts" thing, and a couple other moments, there's really not much to Keaton's Bruce Wayne.
But again, this is like I think Kilmer was a very important stepping stone between, this and Nolan Batman, where again, it's like essentially, you're right, though. It's a Batman who we're getting in his head. We could have stood to get into his head a little bit more, but the way Kilmer's performing it is that we are kind of getting, you're very captivated by, you want to know, like, you care about the guy, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Sorry, one last thing, then we're going to transition. Is that with the way he plays it, he's playing a Batman who is kind of mentally checked out at this stage in his crime fighting career. He's dedicated his life to a cause, and Robin's
Like,
kind
I
of.
think a good way to put that is that I don't like, from a writing perspective, I don't buy that Batman wants to retire. But from a performance perspective, I kind of do.
He plays it very weary. He plays it like he's doing this forever. Like, here's what here's what Keaton's playing so well here. And there's this one really great scene in the movie that I think cuts to the heart of how he's playing Batman, which is a thing we've never really done with Batman. At least, very rarely have we done with Batman. I think maybe technically we've done a little bit with Affleck Batman, but it's this moment of, Robin ultimately is reminding him like why he's doing what he's doing here. We had that really great scene where Robin is telling he wants to kill Two-Face, and basically Batman kind of talks him off the ledge here by saying, revenge. If you get revenge, then you're just gonna keep. You're gonna he gives him the slippery slope speech, but he's like you keep doing it until you forget why you did in the first place.
There's going to be a video game that comes out in about 30 years, Robin. It's called The Last of Us Part 2. And trust me, it'll show you all you need to know about the slippery slope of revenge.
Well, no, seriously, it's like revenge. The actual line is like revenge becomes your life, and you won't know why. Like that line right
that's
there.
A great line. That's a great Batman line.
But that's how he's playing it. He's just playing. You can kind of see that as Bruce Wayne, he's really lost, and not like Keaton lost. Like not like Keaton just kind of uncomfortable. Keaton played uncomfortable in his own skin. That's how he played it.
He's pointing out like Keaton's Bruce Wayne is the most eccentric, insane Bruce we ever got.
Yeah.
The guy slept upside down, Tickerson. I don't know what is Tickerson.
No, I think you're Tickerson, Tiki.
What?
I think it's like Tiki-son. I think it's you.
Okay, that's a funny nickname.
I could be wrong. I don't know if he's like.
Look, I honestly feel like my issue with like Keaton's Bruce Wayne is Dragon. It's kind of similar to your issue with Pattinson's Bruce Wayne. Is that I feel like he's got the eccentric down, just like Pattinson has that kind of like detached quality down, but he doesn't have that playboy suave to go with that. It's like I feel like it's a little bit one note compared to what Kilmer's doing or what Christian
I
Bale
mean,
did.
Kilmer's got a lot of natural charm as the Playboy Bruce Wayne. He's not overselling it. I think that's key. He's playing it he has like some natural kind of like swagger to him, right?
Do Richard Victims? Yeah, he does. He does. Do I pronounce it Teakerson or Tickerson?
I think it's Teakerson, but
Teakerson. All right, I'll take it. I'll take
I
it.
always go with Tikikins. I thought that was funny, but
God.
that's how we always have like Miss Piggy like kind of address, Tiki.
You know what? I watched Muppets Most Wanted with some friends. I showed it to them for the first time. Do you remember who has a cameo in that movie that's like super fucking problematic nowadays?
Oh, problematic. So, oh god, who?
P fucking Diddy.
Oh right. Oh yeah, you're right. He
I just
does.
I love that movie to
God.
death. And Dragon, you'll be happy to know my friends adored Tina Fey. They thought that Tina Fey was probably their favorite part of the movie. But yeah, that Diddy cameo, man. I'm just like, no, that's such a black spot on an otherwise perfect Muppet
You
video.
remember that Stanley Tucci almost shot Kermit the Frog in that movie, right?
Yes, yes. Oh god.
Yeah.
Anyways.
All right. So, let's see. Okay, so I guess do we talk Chase Murray or do we talk Riddler? Where do you want to go?
I think we should go Chase Meridian just because she's pretty tied to Bruce Wayne, pretty tied to the themes.
So Chase Meridian's always been kind of like a huge missed opportunity because there's a lot of. I appreciate what the attempt was for Chase Meridian. Okay, because on paper it
I think
does
on
seem.
paper, you're right. It absolutely works. I think the problem is just the execution of it, the writing, the performance. Like, and I think just the character existing in the film is a good, like it's a natural window into Bruce Wayne's psyche, which we are exploring. But that's really about it. That's really
Yeah.
all the value she has. She does not leap off the screen as a character or leap off the page. She's kind of I don't know, and it's also very much like that. I have a lot of issues with her, but like I said, I can't fault her for being a good window into the Bruce Wayne psychological stuff, and that's the one thing she actually contributes in a positive way to this movie.
So, unfortunately, as lovely as Nicole Kidman is, mind Joel Schumacher, he loves old Hollywood. That was his casting for. He wanted really pretty people in this movie. That's
Uh
why
huh.
we have like a Batman who looks really good in the bat suit. Because Val Kilmer has really good features for like good leading man features for a Batman. Which you put
Sure.
him under the mask. He's got the lips, he's got the jawline. It all works. He got the eyes. It all works out for him. And of course, mask off. He's Cary Grant. It works great. You know. Basically, we need a pretty girl as the love interest. That's kind of what I think ultimately Schumacher is really kind of like looking at here for her. But by the same token, though, it's that I like the idea of Batman dating as a psychologist and the idea of like into getting into Batman's psyche. We have like had Batman actually done legit therapy with this woman?
You know
That
what?
might have
I'm
been.
going to say this much, Dragon. I actually think that this relationship is more fleshed out and believable and dynamic than what we got in Daredevil Born Again. I'm
Okay.
sorry. Just stating my opinion
Okay,
there.
well, I will say this: the same issue within both of those is that she does the therapy again. The psychologist therapist girlfriend does not actually treat the beloved. Okay, in that case,
Right, right,
the
yeah,
same problem persists in both. Let's just agree on that part of it at
sure.
least. Okay, but you see what I mean though. It seems like a missed opportunity. This movie's all about getting in Bruce Wayne's head, but she doesn't really.
And
She
she
doesn't
is
really.
technically a window into that, but like I
Yeah,
said, she doesn't function much more than just like, okay, she's more of a plot point than she is an actual character. It's
yeah.
like we want to explore Bruce Wayne's psyche. How do we do that? Have a psychologist. There we go.
I'm
I mean,
gonna
we might as well just be having like Bruce Wayne going to therapy at that point.
yeah. which again is an idea that can work, and like this might have been an interesting window in there, but it just doesn't seem like there was sufficient screen time to actually be able to do any of that. I guess
Mhm.
you know. Now let me say this because I rarely have an opportunity to bring this up. Because this is where I got the idea from. I'm just going to mention it real quick. The Chase Meridian idea of that character, which by the way, later years she was introduced in the comics. Chase Meridian's actually been
That's what I heard.
incorporated.
Yeah, I heard she was actually pretty decent in the
Yeah,
comic.
no, they made her actually a
Uh-huh.
character this time, but you know. So there's always I've always had this Elseworlds kind of like a light reboot kind of pitch for Batman based on Chase Meridian. I think I might have bored you with it once, but it's always the idea of, and mine is a radical idea. I'm just going to mention it once. It's like, what if Batman and Dr. Harleen Quinzel, what if they worked together in the capacity that Batman and Harvey Dent did in Long Halloween? Like, what if she
Ooh,
was
ooh, I like that.
like, what if she was the insight, like into
Right.
mob? Think about Batman Begins. In Batman Begins, you had mobsters pretending to be crazy on the inside of Arkham Asylum. So what if like she was the way of like figuring that out, of like getting a beat on by having an inside man in Arkham Asylum to report back. So it's always kind of, and potentially, I'm not saying this is necessary, but let's just say, regardless, either as a friend or maybe there is some some tension or something. I'm not saying we went full tilt with it, but let's say there's maybe hints of something. If there were a relationship, then it would make it all the more, just friends, or maybe romantic. Emphasis on the maybe. When Joker enters the fray, he would be taking another close loved one of some variety away from Batman, which would again there's always been somewhat of a love triangle between those three anyways, which would make it all the more personal and screwed up that look what Joker took away from Batman now.
Hmm. Hmm.
So all that stemming from like the whole idea of Batman kind of paired again in like a kind of a, as we saw in the opening of this movie, like we brought in a consultant to help out with a supervillain, so she's there at a Batman Gordon kind of rooftop scene of sorts, like we would have Batman, Harvey Dent, and Jim Gordon. So
Hmm.
anyway, so she's very much horning in on Lois Lane's territory in this movie, because it's very much the Lois Lane Superman problem. Not problem, it's like the issue that Superman has. Like Lois Lane, if only he could mix and match.
Right, right,
It's a
yeah.
fact that Lois Lane, in this case, Chase Meridian, she loves both men, and she keeps going back and forth like a soap opera, and like which Bruce Wayne that she likes.
And you see, that is where the Chase Meridian stuff to me gets really tiresome, is the fact that, like, we're treating her less as, like, a professional psychologist and more as just, like, like an aloof love interest. And,
Yeah.
like, I don't know. And honestly, for me, I feel like, first of all, there's about a million different, like, doctor-patient confidentiality things that she's probably violating just by doing what she's doing in this movie, frankly.
Well, again, she doesn't know that he's Batman.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. But yeah, at the end of the day, it feels like Chase is like all the Chase Batman stuff. I think aesthetically, it's very well shot in terms of seduction. But it's like and she and Kilmer do have chemistry, but it's very much something we don't need. I don't think
Mhm.
it complicates the movie. We need screen time in other parts of the movie. I don't know.
Mhm.
Yeah.
All right. So what's next?
Well, I guess we should broach the subject of the Riddler.
Okay. And again, folks, Richard's Victims, if you weren't in the comments when I said this, this honestly, and I say this mostly from a rewatch, this might be my single least favorite Jim Carrey performance out of the stuff I've seen. And I haven't seen every Jim Carrey performance, but I just feel like, for me personally, I just feel like Jim Carrey is just like he's turning up his like everything about Jim Carrey's performance is like dialed up to 11, and there's no nuance to it. There's just like it's all just like big high energy, like, and for a character like the Riddler, yes, I understand that the Riddler can be an over the top guy, but he's also a very, very analytical, hyper intelligent person. And none of that to me gets conveyed at all within Jim Carrey's performance. It's Jim Carrey is just being a goof. Not to mention, I really, really dislike the whole trope of like, oh, it's the it's the nerdy person, it's the mousy secretary or whatever, and now they're now they're hyper fixated on the hero, like the the cheetah, the Electro, all those, like, it is not a trope I am a fan of, and this movie absolutely started that trope, and I am not okay with that.
Okay, so I really enjoy Jim Carrey as the Riddler. Now that said, so I've always had this with the Riddler though. Looking back, and I want to know if you were just thinking about this, if you might have had this. Okay, with what is presented specifically when we introduce the Riddler before he actually puts on the costume, we introduce Edward Nygma at Wayne Enterprises. Did you get a vibe of, like, doesn't it feel like in like some other version of, like, in the drafting of this movie, it feels like he has more in common with Mad Hatter from Batman the Animated Series than he does the Riddler?
Yeah, I could see that. I could totally see that. And honestly, I feel like what he's doing in this could actually just be like the Mad Hatter by all intents and purposes. Honestly, even down to like the fucking brainwashing scheme,
That's what I'm getting at. Because think about it. We had, remember, Mad Hatter and Batman the Animated Series, he actually worked for Wayne Enterprises. He was a Wayne tech scientist, and he's working on manipulating the mind, and Bruce Wayne was really nice to him when he showed up. Like, I saw a lot of similarities, and it feels like maybe there was like a part of me wonders if it was like a thing of like, Mad Hatter's just not marketable because we have to do the Alice in Wonderland thing, and I don't know.
I honestly feel like there's a way to do Mad Hatter where you're not fully committed to the Alice in Wonderland thing.
Well, I think now we can get it.
Do it, but
I think now we can get away. I'm just saying then it feels like it would have been like, people just can't get behind the whole he gives people hats thing. I don't think people just go.
Mad Hatter, for my money, would absolutely be near the top of the list. And I agree with Gias here. He would absolutely be near the top of the list as far as like Batman villains that have not been adapted into live action yet that I would love to see adapted into live action. He absolutely fits that bill, I think.
Oh, yeah. So again, the idea that we introduced the Riddler, in kind of initially, he's grounded at first. He's a stalker with an ego. Riddler, riddles as like threats and revenge. I think I like the Riddler's plan. Again, the vision of screen time with the fact that we have two villains, that goes out the window. Obviously, that's where we run to the systemic problem with the movie. But with what is presented, I mean, the plan of like, I'm going to essentially become Bruce Wayne, and more so, I'm gonna prove that my idea works. It's going to serve his ego. That feels on brand for the Riddler. That some way, like he takes something as a slight, and he turns it into a giant monument to his ego, and he's not listening to reason. Again, like he's I think the thing that's working against this version of the Riddler is the fact that he's stealing intelligence versus just kind of having the intelligence. And and I'll tell you why that is. You'll notice we don't see the Riddler a lot in media. The reason is to do Riddler right, and the reason we only see him like 3 times properly in the animated series. Riddles are very difficult to write like properly, and as you can see in this movie, the riddles essentially, our big riddle in question is it's map coordinates. That's the big riddle. It took them a whole movie to come up with that one actual. Right. All the other riddles are just kind of like kind of cutesy riddles. So riddles are very difficult, which is why it's we don't get a lot of them. Period. Just in terms of our adaptations of them. So again, it feels like the shortcut is okay. He's becoming hyper intelligent via technology, which the Riddler conceivably could do. Which in the Arkham games we kind of see him have technology and stuff. So anyway, once that someone we have to shout out, Tiki. If we have to talk about one thing in this whole movie, we have to talk about Fred.
You're gonna have to remind me.
Okay, the Riddler's boss at Wayne Enterprises is
right.
He is played by.
You're gonna have to remind me. I'm sorry.
Ed Begley Jr.
Oh, right, of course. Yeah. Oh man.
God, yes. Wonderful Ed Begley Jr. After his turn on Batman the Animated Series, may I remind you? All right, now here's where I'm going to agree with you, Tiki. Okay, first of all, again, Ed Begley Jr. was great in the scene that he had where he's just, kind of being a victim of the Riddler. It's like, Bruce Wayne was right. You're a man. You're going to the police.
Right.
He knocks him out the window and everything. But so I call BS on the.
I feel like Ed Begley Jr. is very much like the more grounded version of John Glover.
Yeah. So I call BS on the whole suicide aftermath here, where we have like this is the embarrassment of like I'm face palming where it goes clearly a suicide. Like
oh man, oh yeah.
Like these are the scenes that hurt me with
like
Gordon.
what are you doing, Jim? Come on, you're better than that.
Yeah, this is a Jim who actually went to lunch.
Oh, God.
But yeah, so I mean the whole thing. But again, with Jim Carrey's acting in this scene, though, I want to be clear. Okay, so to your point about Jim Carrey, I don't. Yes, there are a lot. It's wall to wall big choices. I get it. Clearly, he had the ability to not play the big choices. Clearly, I think as we see with the opening with Enigma, I think we see in places that
I mean, really quick to that point, Richard's Victim says, what sucks is that I do think Jim Carrey could play a really good, more comic book Riddler. I just don't think this is a good version of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Go ahead, though.
I don't think the studio... I think the studio wanted the safest bet, so I think that was ultimately where it came from, where it was like, whether it's the studio or Schumacher just kind of playing to the strengths of like, we don't have time to really fully develop like the subtleties on the Riddler. So just do your just basically. I think they let Jim just improv, just do whatever you think would be fun here, and it feels like as we can kind of see in moments. And I think the best, I will tell you, the best Riddler. I think the best Riddler scene in the movie, at least for me. I love when he's pitching Two-Face on the idea of the team up. I really like that because there's a little bit of you kind of have. I think there's some.
In spite of the backstage shenanigans going on between Jim Carrey and Tommy Lee Jones, they do genuinely pull together some really fun chemistry. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I mean, I really, honestly, I always kind of real like that's the scene before things took a turn for him. It's like they have one scene where they're kind of getting along, and that's the one scene where I absolutely believe Riddler having the charisma to kind of sway Two-Face there, and his logic's pretty sound. And like look, you help me, I'll help you. Again with the whole plotting of the movie, you have two enemies, one of Bruce Wayne, one of Batman, that then they're kind of working together unknowingly for the exact same goal. And I think that's great. And I think what we see with Carrey is that Carrey has the potential. I think ultimately what he is doing here is he is kind of playing. He has the potential to go full Frank Gorshin, but they're not letting him. You can see there's a menace and there's an intelligence, and there's a wackiness, but it feels like we could have balanced that a little bit more.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I can see that.
There's definitely a lot of Gorshin here, but we're not quite getting the full subtleties of what Gorshin did, where Gorshin could be quite intimidating despite the maniacal laughter.
Sure.
Anyway, but yeah, little touches. What really I loved where we get the costume from the Zoltar machine, like the crisscross laundry, like the grounded version of the Riddler actually is pretty compelling, I would say. Then we kind of go really broad with him after that team up scene. Let's see. Yeah, but at the end of the day, with their team, with the villain team up between the two of them, Two-Face really suffered because in this team up, after that initial, they agree to work together, we just dumbed down Two-Face because that's Tommy Lee Jones.
Two-Face has nothing to do after that. He's essentially it sucks to say it, but he basically just becomes the Riddler's sidekick almost.
Honestly, it's a bad Nicholson impression. That's kind of what it becomes.
Yes.
It becomes,
and like we said, I do feel like Tommy Lee Jones did have something in his first couple scenes. But as the movie goes on, and maybe this is like the byproduct of working with Jim Carrey, kind of grinding him down and just doing the Jack Nicholson is all he could have the energy to do. I don't know, but I mean, Jim Carrey is basically doing the most absolutely unfiltered, it is Jim Carrey and his most Jim Carrey. And then Tommy Lee Jones is basically just like Joker 2.0, Jack Nicholson Joker 2.0.
See, here's what kills me about Two-Face in this team up. You're right, because we dumb him down. We kind of make him essentially he's the dumb flunky, but he's the muscle. So that's essentially so their reason for teaming up does make sense. Where
RB2 should absolutely never be the muscle. That is not his character.
No, you're right. It's not. But it just feels like it makes sense in that the Riddler is, the Riddler's new to villainy, and he wants somebody who's experienced in villainy. So Two-Face is literally showing him like how to punch. Two-Face, show me how to punch a guy. Well, the ball up the fist, reach back and assert yourself. And again, silly scene as that is, you get the idea that okay, he was inspired by Two-Face killing the Flying Grayson. So I need to work with this guy. I need somebody to help me, help me get capital and help me. I need a guy who's experienced in crime so I can get my revenge. So in that respect, this team up makes sense. But everything happened again. You're right. It just becomes the second fiddle. And here's what kills me. Okay, in this team up, Two-Face, just complete moron in that Riddler's got a solid plan. If he just follows the plan, he'll be fine. And it's like he crashes the big party in which they actually finally got Bruce Wayne, but he indeed jeopardizes that when he shows up.
Right.
Let me tell you the worst Two-Face scene in the whole movie. Okay, worst scene. So after the awesome idea of so Batman villains have invaded Wayne Manor, which is we never see ever, which is it's pretty big. So
you're right. That is a really good set piece for sure. Especially
that's great.
I love how we set it up with Alfred giving the candy to the kids. Again, we're gonna have a lot more to say about Michael Go's Alfred when we get to the Robin stuff. But
yes,
I genuinely think this is his best Alfred performance in this movie. I think.
Oh, it's wonderful.
Yeah, and I don't know, just that little smile he gives when he opens the door to the initial trick-or-treaters. It's so nice. It's so nice. I love it. Anyway,
sure not to eat it all now or you'll get sick. Lovely man, just absolutely lovely. I think the dogs will eat it. That kind of stuff. Anyway, just this. After all the chaos is happening in Wayne Manor, Two-Face is flipping his coin again and again, trying to get bad side. Complete betrayal of the character. The whole point is he goes by what the coin says. It's why it's why he didn't kill the Riddler when he showed up. It's this is it's a very simple, time-tested, important thing with the character. He does what the coin says. If he can just flip it to get whatever he wants with a stupid look on his bifurcated face, that's not going to work. And then Riddler's showing up no, you guys went over the plan. Two-Face should be on board with this at this point. We want to do a whole death trap. We can't do the death trap if you just shoot him in the head. Stupid.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's Two-Face is just set dressing at the end of the day.
Basically, yeah.
He's set dressing in pants. Okay, so let's talk about Robin. Now, Tiki is just so Rob. This Rob is DG, which stands for
Dick Grayson.
Good. I thought you were going to say Darman Gregg. Yes.
Wow.
Dick Grayson, who is Robin.
Yeah. So honestly, I was surprised by how, on a rewatch, how well all the Robin stuff works. Because as much as I do defend Batman and Robin as a movie and think it's a really fun time, I will say that Chris O'Donnell is probably the weakest element of that movie. He is very whiny. I don't necessarily think it's the performance. I think the writing of the character is a significant downgrade from how he is here. No, I mean, I honestly think they pretty much more or less nail it. I mean, I will say that I've always felt, even as a kid, I've always felt that Chris O'Donnell felt a little old for Robin. But you know what? If we are going to go kind of the college-aged route with him, I think Chris O'Donnell does about as good of a job as you could possibly do with this character in this movie, honestly.
I mean, that's the thing, Tiki. It never weirded me out that we had an older Robin because that's what I was introduced to back in the animated series. I had the college-age Robin, so it never really weirded me out.
I mean, I feel like Chris O'Donnell is probably a little bit leans a little older than what that Robin is at the start of Batman the Animated
Well,
series.
Know what I mean. It's the college, the Robin who's in college, and we even say Dick Grayson college students. I'm not questioning the actual ages of the actors at this point. The whole high school Tobey Maguire thing. We don't need to worry about that right now.
God, oh my God, I mean, I love the Spider-Man movies, but Jesus Christ, all those high schoolers, yeah.
But again, these were the tropes of the 90s.
It's a good thing that they graduated a half hour into the first Raimi movie. That's all I can say.
Exactly. So here's the thing. So doing the origin at an older age, it's not too foreign an idea.
I
For the
think one of
first,
the things that works well for it is that it allows us to fully go into like the again, I feel like Robin is going through a genuinely kind of like dark psychological um journey in this movie with the revenge thing, and I feel like if we were to do that with a kid, it would not flow well. So yeah.
I mean, that was a thing too. Like they were really, again, they're very hesitant to do a kid because the whole imitatable. It's so
Right.
funny that even like going back to the days of old, like it's always like it's always like the comics code just still exists to a degree. Like we can't endanger a child, kind of a thing, you know.
Hmm. Hmm.
Anyway, but yeah, so like for a first stab at like Robin, I always felt that this movie did do a very solid take on. Look, if we're gonna at least take a first stab at Robin, there are worse things you could do. You know, this was the thing that always kind of weirded me out as a kid. Like the Flying Graysons were, I think at the end of the day, it really should be like just just the three. It should be Robin and his parents. So we had a brother. The reason we added a brother, I never got into adulthood, is that we added a brother because if it's basically making it like family members instead of just his parents, again, it would make it with the age that we have at play here, it would feel like it's kind of hard to sell that he's orphaned, like again, if it's just his parents and he's a kid, he's orphaned. If he's a
Hmm.
grown man, the parents get killed. I'm not trying to take away from that, but it just feels like we're trying to show it's more traumatic loss than it is like a kid being orphaned and taken in. It's a whole partnership versus a father figure kind of thing.
But considering the brother, I mean, let's face it, the Graysons have like nothing to do as characters before they're killed off. Not to the
Well,
fault of the movie, it's just the
they
directing choice.
they save everyone in the tent. That's really nice.
Sure. But the brother especially is kind of a nothing burger of a character.
Well, of course.
He's really nothing.
Well, again, he's an
I just
extra role.
I'm kind of with you. Like I don't really understand the point just beyond just giving him a little bit of extra motivation.
Yeah, they just don't want to say like, oh, the poor boy was orphaned. That's all they don't want to say that. That's the thing.
Yeah, but technically, isn't there stuff about like Robin technically being like Bruce Wayne taking him in, being like the loophole to avoiding the foster care system or
Well, that's the
something?
thing that they're saying. Basically, in the movie, they say that he's like 17,
Hmm. Hmm.
which again, but that's the thing.
I've seen
It's like
less convincing 17-year-olds. I mean, I'm pretty sure Ben Platt and Dear Evan Hansen is playing like 18, and my God, that guy looks like he's 30 fucking 6 years old.
I'm not cool. I will go with I'll go with whimsy. Okay, I don't. It's fine. It's 17 college. Look, we're saying college age. He's older. We get it. I think we can move
Mhm.
on from there in that regard. So that's fine. So yes, that's what we say. Oh, by the way, I forgot to ask you. In the scene where we do the fake suicide, did you notice the extra that we had in that scene, like of like the Wayne Enterprises guys that were in the room?
I can't say that I did. No,
Uh,
sorry.
it was the actor, John Favreau.
Oh my God! Wow, no, I did not
So
notice
not the
that.
director, not like the PA, not director. It's like
Uh-huh.
it was the actor. You remember the acting years of John Favreau? So
Of
that was
course, of
John
course.
Favreau, the actor.
Hmm.
So one other
John
thing I want,
Favreau, the director, is just John.
yeah.
John. Anyways,
Oh, by the way, I wanted to mention there was one subtle thing in that scene, real quick. I know we moved past it, but I really want it was a really great Val Kilmer acting moment. I love when Bruce Wayne says full benefits for the family for Ed Bigley Jr.'s character's family, like because suicide's not really covered by it. They full benefits. He says it without like a hesitation, like hey, make sure he gets full benefits. It was
yeah,
really his
yeah,
family
that is
gets
a
full
nice
benefits.
moment for sure.
It's really sweet. I have no other place ever to get that in there, so I just wanted to make sure I got it in there somewhere.
All right,
Okay.
respect.
Anyway,
I
so Two
think
Face killing.
Batman is the philanthropist is always kind of like a good like sort of like low hanging fruit story beat to get you on his side.
Absolutely. So Two Face killing the Graysons. This is on brand because Robin and Two Face
Hmm.
do have a history in the comics at times. Where it's like
I
I
will
was.
say that this to me is probably the most effective that Two-Face is in the whole movie, and this is before he gets teamed up with Jim Carrey.
Hmm. Yeah. Admittedly, again, we have that stunt show sequence with Two-Face after he kills the Graysons, where just we have like him randomly, going with a shopping cart, just like pretending to be like a little old lady with like, like the
Oh, that's
twins.
right. Yeah, yeah.
It's just very convenient. That's where we get the cool Batmobile. That's where we get the Batmobile driving up walls, by the way, which is
The
still.
Batmobile driving up that wall is like genuinely one of the coolest Batmobile things I've seen in any movie.
And again, it's kind of Schumacher doing an update on the campy, but kind of making campy cool with moments
Mhm.
like this, where like we can make the Batmobile drive up walls and kind of dodge missiles, and it's like it's cool.
Sure, sure.
Plus, it has like the big fin. So a lot of people wonder why is there a big fin? It's harkening back to the Batmobile of the '40s, which is really neat.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's a little blue points at one detail in the Batmobile. Is like the ribs, and we see the engine and it glows. And actually have a Christmas ornament of all the Batmobiles, and I do have this one. There's like a little button you can press, and you see like the blue glowing kind of engine stuff. It's neat.
I'm not gonna like. I think part of my affinity for this Batmobile is definitely the fact that like this is like not just the first Batman movie, but the first movie period that I like have vivid memories of the toy line coming out for. Like, but no, I really do think this is one of the top tier Batmobiles. I love this Batmobile design.
Yeah. All right. So with the origin of Robin, I love Bruce Wayne. This always stuck with me as a kid. I mean, this is like with the nostalgia here. I was like always like that. Like I was out of my mind, wrapped up in the movie where like Bruce Wayne is like, I was like, oh no, what's Batman gonna do? And she's like, Two Faces is he's making the very broad assumption that Batman's happens to be there in the tent.
Right, right, right.
Look, I'm not saying it makes a lot of sense. Look, I want to make clear. I'm just saying I like the moment and how it plays. I'm not saying it's smart. I just like the
Uh,
moment. I love like Bruce Wayne stepping up and he's like Harvey, I'm
no, no, no.
Batman.
I like that a lot too. I think it's a little silly, but like I do like it. And honestly, it is one of those Kilmer moments where he's being completely selfless in that
Yeah.
moment.
And again, we pay it off real nice with a classic kind of Batman delivery. Where later on, when Robin he finds out Bruce Wayne's Batman, he takes the Batmobile for a joyride, and he's confronted with Batman. He's like punching him and everything. He says he's very upset, saying it should have been you. And we have this really great delivery from Kilmer. He says, if Bruce Wayne could have saved your parents, saved your family, he would have.
Mhm.
Given his life to save your family, he would have. It's such a good moment.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
we know for a fact he tried. Yep. So I love that the Graysons are in the classic suit. By the way, in the classic, we
I
weren't in
do
the
like
actual.
that that is like the inspiration for the Robin costume in this. That's a really good touch.
So
Yeah.
with that, we got to talk about the Alfred stuff. So
Oh God, I Dragon. I mean, I always knew that Robin and Alfred had some good stuff in this movie, but like on a rewatch, this was a treat, man. I adore all the Robin and Alfred stuff in this.
Tiki hit him with the Alfred Credo that we live by on this channel. Hit him with it.
There has never been a bad Alfred. No matter like I don't care if it's like in a cartoon, in a live action movie, in a TV show. There's never been a bad Alfred.
Nope,
I
never been there.
honestly think it's practically impossible. I think the
Yeah.
closest one is low key, probably Andy Serkis, but even he's like at
No,
least tolerable.
no.
I think the problem with his Alfred is just that he never really got a lot to do. He never really got a chance to really fully develop that
No,
character.
we hit him with a bomb. It's not his fault.
Right, right. Anyways.
We literally blew him up. He's alive. We blew him up. Okay, here's the only legit actual closest thing we've been. Here's the thing. This is still a good Alfred, but in the later seasons of that Harley Quinn show, we did a bad episode with him. That's one
Oh
episode.
no. Oh god.
There's but again, he still was a good Alfred. Like
And I'll let you be the authority on the Pennyworth show.
look that again, that was a young Alfred, but Alfred was cool in that show. He
All right, all
was. Plus,
right.
he had a dynamic with his father. It was cool.
Mhm.
Anyway, point being, but yeah, so Michael Goff, one of the greats of all the Alfreds. Again, obviously the first like on screen, Alfred. Like on the big screen, Alfred. Some very fun and sweet moments with him, and I think the definitive Alfred moment in all the honestly, I'm going to say throughout the '90s, Alfred's live action out '90s Alfreds.
Mhm.
Um, Broken wings mend in time. Robin will fly again.
Oh God! Oh fuck yeah! Fucking get that on a bumper sticker, dude. Seriously.
It is, and again, with our great our name set up with the whole, like, the Robin on the his father called him like his Robin, and it had like
Uh-huh.
little Robin spray. But like these, like the human details, I think Schumacher really brought out in a really cool way. No one ever gives him credit for, because it's always going with, like, ice puns and everything. But these little moments,
I love how Alfred in this movie, as he should be, as he absolutely should be, and what Michael Caine later on just absolutely nails with the character. He is like the definitive moral compass of this movie.
absolutely. And also, again, we gave the Michael Goff, we gave him some funny moments too, which you really appreciate too. Like, there's this great gag no one ever talks about. Okay, uh, DG, that's Dick Grayson, by the way. Dick Grayson, he tries to, he's snooping around a little bit, and he's going to, like, the entrance to the Batcave, and he's saying, Alfred, why is it locked? What's behind here? Master Wayne's dead collection of dead wives. It's the
Oh
silver
right,
closet.
right, yeah, that's great, that's great. Oh,
It's the
so
silver
good.
closet on. It's the silver closet on your way. It's just and of course we have, like, the other car, sir, like the Bentley. No, the other
Oh my
car.
God, I love that. Ah, I love that moment too. I love that moment because it's like it's one of the few times you get to see Alfred be like really like out of his element. Like he knows that he has to be subtle. He can't just say the Batmobile. Oh, so
It
good.
admittedly,
So
it's probably
good.
great as that moment is. Admittedly, maybe Bruce Wayne doing, like, the little wristwatch wasn't a little like, kind of James Bond writwatch wasn't
Right.
the best.
That's not Alfred's fault though.
No, it's not his fault. I'm just saying in terms, like, trying to be, the subtlety there, but. Let me be honest. The reason you don't like Jim Carrey's Riddler is because he hit Alfred. Is that right? Is that the real reason? Because he hit him.
Maybe.
Seriously, that was like, honestly, of all the movies, that is like the big, like, Alfred actually got hit one time in this movie. It's like the one time we actually
Uh-huh.
hurt poor Alfred. You know.
No, I mean again with the Jim Carrey stuff, my problem is that like
No, no, your problem.
at
I'm just saying.
11, he's at 11 all the time. There's no subtlety to him at all. And we know Jim Carrey is an actor that could bring that if he wanted to.
Again, they didn't have faith in him. It was an early Jim Carrey. They didn't. They weren't. They denied themselves, like, like, that he was actually capable of really great subtleties. But,
Mhm.
to be fair, Batman Forever, well, the Schumacher films, we're loving the subtle moments that are actually in there, but I think collectively no one really associates them with the subtlety, but which is their mistake.
No, subtle is absolutely not what you would think of when you think of Joel Schumacher Batman. You got that
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
But still, I mean, it's kind of shy. This is like the one time Alfred actually gets hurt in any of these Batman movies. Like, well, until Reeves, honestly, until Matt Reeves. If you think about it.
Right.
Okay, let's see. I will admit, okay, the laundry scene's still really silly. As we established, okay, so he can fight. He can do, like, ninja moves, and, like, he can do, like, martial arts with laundry. It was always like, okay, that's just Schumacher just doing something fun. It's just.
That's very much like that kind of like Bart Simpson 90s like brat energy,
I was gonna say it's very Lost Boys. Like, okay, we got
Yeah, for sure,
It's
for
very
sure.
much Schumacher feeling his Lost Boys oats on that one. All right, let's see. So then, so we have. I got it. Okay. So the stunt show moment. Okay, so Robin's stealing the Batmobile and he fights the Neon Gang with Don the Dragon Wilson.
I do not like the Neon Gang. I just think that that's kind of the honestly, Dragon, that is kind of the point of the movie where just the campiness just kind of becomes a little too much for me. And we're trying to balance the tone at the same time. That's usually around the part of the movie where I kind of check out. I'm not going to lie.
No. So again, we have the reluctant mentorship between Batman and Robin. Is Batman very much doesn't want to lead him down a path of vengeance because of the whole revenge will become your life. You won't know why thing I mentioned earlier. Let me ask you this, Tiki. Where do you come down on? Do you think 89 and Forever take place in the same universe because we have like the same Alfred and the same Gordon, or do you think it's do you think they are like completely separate and just happen to cast the same people?
I mean, can I use Elseworlds?
I
Is
mean,
that
that's what
an
I'm saying.
option?
Yeah, yes, yeah, that's what I'm saying. You can say it if
Because
they're not
obviously
connected.
the
Then
big discrepancy has got to be Two-Face, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I can't in good consciousness say that it takes place in exactly the same universe, but I think it's clearly we're working with some sort of like parallel dimension or something if we want to go like if we really want to try and canonize it.
Oh, I mean, you could always say it's a recasting, Tiki. That's the thing.
Yeah,
I
you could say
mean,
it was a recasting if it was a fucking black actor, dude.
well, I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying, look,
I'm just saying, just to completely change the race, that's a whole different thing.
okay, well, look, I
That's
want
not like a Don Cheadle, like a like
it,
yeah,
it was
that's
also a different time, though, Tiki. I'm not saying it was right, but the real first and foremost, I want to be just to set the record straight. When they made the movie, from what I understand, when they made the movie, they're making it separate, like it's not in connection with the Burton films. But they knew the Burton films were on people's minds, which is why we have references to the Burton films.
Mhm.
I bring it up because
And honestly, I feel like Michael Goff at the time, he was so perfect as Alfred that
yeah,
like it would have been a shame to replace him. It really would have been. Gordon, on the other hand,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's crazy that Gordon is the only other person to stick around for all four movies.
See, to me, the answer lies.
Is.
Look, honestly I'm with you in just the consensus that it's very much two separate, it's two separate Elseworlds, if you will, because you
Mhm.
look at the '89 comic they did that's like a sequel to the Burton stuff. Like they're reference, for example, they introduce Batgirl as Gordon's daughter, but they make it like Sean Young, and they have Billy D. Williams Two Face. Like it's all very much like contained in the stuff that Burton set up.
Sure, sure.
And we do the Marlon Wayne's Robin, we do all that. So that's all very much, it's very separate from this. But I don't know. In the movie, though, we kind of have again. They're trying the way they play in the movies. They're trying to have their cake and eat too, so they don't have to answer those questions to people. So they have just enough, where it's like, hey, Chase Meridian's kind of name dropping Catwoman a little bit there,
That too,
and
yeah,
and
that's
we
true.
we have the whole thing of your parents weren't killed by madmen. They were kind of alluding to Joker.
Hmm.
Just saying. I don't know.
But I mean, let's face it, Dragon. Let's call a spade here. We're working in an era of comic book movies where, like,
Mhm.
the cinematic universe and the continuity and the canon just was not in the equation at the time. It wasn't even
No,
part of the nerd culture language at the time.
you're
It
right.
certainly was in comics, but definitely the idea of doing that within a movie was still a pretty long ways off.
However, I just want to shout something out.
Hmm.
This movie is our first reference of Superman within Batman.
Remind me where we get the Superman reference, because obviously I know where the Superman
Hmm.
reference is at in Batman and Robin.
Okay, so when we have this, they have the really nice. And seriously, that just kind of gloss over. Bruce and Dick, they have really nice. They have really nice chemistry where he's trying to be respectful of where Dick Grayson's coming from and trying to like send him on his way, but to show him that I mean, you can keep the bike if you work on it. And Alfred with the whole like well, I guess I'll feed it to the dogs. Hey, yeah, wait up, all that kind of stuff. Um, when Bruce Wayne's he's trying to convince him to stay. He says, "Well, like Metropolis is like 70 miles that way," or it's going to. He mentions Metropolis.
Uh-huh. Oh yeah, yeah, okay.
There you go. All right. So let's see. So the Ritz Gotham, we have. I want to shout out Gossip Gertie, Bob Kane's wife. Elizabeth Kane. She plays like the over the top, reporter. Like, Gotham must know. That's her. Yep. Yeah, Bob Kane was on set for these again. Didn't earn it, but he was there.
Right, right, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Kane's always his can of worms. I'm not going to get into. Let's just say, he was on set a lot, and he did enjoy himself, and it's at least he got the deal for Batman. So at least we have the
Is it
namesake, and
fair
we
to
have.
say that Bob Kane is almost kind of like the Ray Kroc of
Oh,
Batman?
absolutely. I
Yeah,
told you if they
yeah.
ever. I still campaign for like what you suggested with Clark Gregg playing Bill Finger, and I still would say maybe Michael Keaton playing
Michael
Bob Kane.
Keaton playing Bob Kane would be a really, really fun meta casting for
Yeah,
sure.
that's the thing. I still think that at the end of the day, the Bob Kane, he made the deal. He was starting a character, and then Bill Finger did everything else. That's it's
Mhm,
kind of like in terms of the
mhm.
division of labor there. I want to say Bob Kane generously 10%, Bill Finger like 90.
Sure, sure.
regardless, though, Bob Kane, he was always on the doing the press and everything for it. So he was
He
on
was
set.
essentially Batman's hype man.
Absolutely, yeah. So he
Yeah,
was,
yeah.
Anyway, you want to talk about ego, though? That guy had ego.
Oh, God, no doubt. Obviously.
Anyway, but I always thought it was like before I really found out that I always I knew about Bill Finger. I did not know that Bill Finger got shafted the way that he did, at least
Mhm.
from growing up. So I did find it kind of cool that there was a Stan Lee equivalent with Kane being referenced here and there in the original '90s stuff when Kane was still alive, and like the fact that his wife got a cameo in like the Schumacher stuff. I always thought that was kind of cute.
Mhm.
Anyway, so Enigma's copying Bruce Wayne, which again having a solid plan that he succeeded at. That he's kind of like had this tech company that he built, and there's a box everywhere in Gotham, kind of where we're at now with cable and streaming and everything.
Sure, sure.
He built the original Wi-Fi tower, essentially, that's stealing everyone's minds.
I mean, honestly, low key, in some ways, this movie is a little bit ahead of its time with the tech.
Yeah,
because essentially what he's doing is basically just VR.
it means VR, but it's also like kind of like data stealing. It's kind of
Mhm,
through the
mhm.
mind, but yeah. So he traps Bruce Wayne. He scans his mind before Two Face stupidly ruins everything. But we got to talk about the awesome bat entrance when Batman just crashes through that skylight and he lands right on the fountain. And we have like this great trailer moment of like, your entrance was good, his was better. The
Mhm,
difference,
mhm.
showmanship. Okay, then we have to put the worst extra in the whole movie.
Batman! It's Batman!
No, no,
That
no,
guy.
yeah, no, it's that guy. But here's what he says:
Okay.
Batman,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. Oh, my God.
If you seriously, you look at that, it just kills me because you know how much I live for a bat entrance and a bat exit, right?
Uh-huh.
We have this amazing bat entrance. It looks we have Riddler commenting on how cool it is. But the moment he crashes through that skyline, we see the pretty girl Chase Marie, and then we like right next to her is this guy pointing this bold extra like Batman, yeah, completely undercutting the awesomeness of this
It
moment.
really is. It really is just so bad.
And again, real stunt guys, by the way. So, we got to take a moment to acknowledge that again. Keaton struggled with this so much because Keaton's actually in that suit doing the stunts that he couldn't with limited mobility. Now we have actual skilled stunt guys fighting in these 100-pound bat suits, and it looks really for the time very impressive. This is before we have like a suit that can actually I don't know. I'm just saying it was the mobility on this suit during these action scenes. This was like saying like, hey, TV's in color now, but it was big for the time. Seeing Batman actually fight more.
Mhm.
you know, and still not being able to turn his head, but being able to hit people. Still. All right, let's see. So we have that. Then we have like honestly one of my favorite moments in the whole movie, which oddly is not quite a Batman moment. So we have the subway death trap where Two Face have got a bad case of gas. He lights
Oh,
up the
God.
whole. He lights it on fire. We have Batman using the cool, all the bat gadgets here. The heat shield cape, the fire retardant bat cape.
Mhm.
Then he emerges from the fire, which is really cool. It was also a dangerous stunt because the fire got a little out of hand in that shot. But Two Face buries him in like scaffolding and like all this dirt and grain and whatever. We had the best the score has ever sounded, the most triumphant Batman score in the whole movie from Elliot Goldenthal. Robin shows up in the classic costume. He reaches in, he pulls him out, and it's like this really great expression on O'Donnell's face, and it's just this beautiful, like that. There's your Batman and Robin moment. Like, oh my god,
Sure, sure. Yeah.
it's such a great Robin moment. All right, let's see. So as I already mentioned, I don't like the retirement thing for the reasons I already stated earlier. If we did the whole therapy thing, then maybe after therapy with Chase Meridian, then he would reach a point of like maybe I should consider retirement for all the trouble that I've caused between Bruce Wayne's life and Batman's life.
Mhm.
So we have the attack on Wayne Manor. It's a first for the film. Poor Alfred's getting hit. We blow up the Batcave. It's This is like absolute Riddler's dream come true in terms of, like, figuring out who Batman is and destroying the Batcave and just kind of lording over it. So, I think Carrey's having a lot of fun with, like, Riddler's wet dream there.
Mm-hmm.
So the deleted scene. So the whole thing is that, unfortunately, the way it plays in the movie, to the untrained eye, it seems a lot like Bruce Wayne may have forgotten that his parents were murdered. Again, I know he didn't actually forget, but he suppressed the trauma. He suppressed the trauma of his parents' murder. And what didn't make the final cut was that he mentions, to Chase Murray, and I was running in the rain with my father's journal that he'd never be able to write in again. So in the extended cut, the deleted scene, when he was at the low of lows, right after he comes to and Chase Murray's been kidnapped, he and Alfred go to the original Batcave, the one that he fell down, kind of a la Dark Knight Returns. Where he saw the bat flying for the first time. He returns to the cave and he remembers, as a boy, he fell in the cave after he read in his father's journal, Martha and I want to stay in tonight, but Bruce insists on seeing the
Oh
movie,
yeah, right, for sure.
which would have been so good. It was such a great idea that, oh
And
my God.
honestly, it is. I mean, let's just give credit where credit's due. Like Nolan adapts that fucking brilliantly in Batman
Yeah.
Begins.
But even so, as great as Nolan is with that, again, no, you're right. We do the Batcave fall perfectly there with Nolan.
The
But
Batcave fall and the guilt that Bruce feels over like indirectly causing the death too.
yeah, no, you're right. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. This is kind of it's like a stepping stone for that kind of thing, or
Mm-hmm.
Nolan did his own thing with it. But just the idea that we had like a literal, like, traumatic moment for a kid, like, who would have been reading from his journal, like his father written in his own hand, that my son is led to my demise. Traumatizes him. He runs in the rain. He falls in the cave. So anyway, in this cave, we have this giant. It looks like Man Bat if you've ever seen the scene. It's like Rick Baker built this giant, awesome Man Bat that shows up. So it's him, like, seeing the bat fly towards him, and the way they shoot it, it, like, initially it looks like the bat from a distance, and it just shows up and he basically holds his arms out, accepting, like, his trauma and his darkness, and it, like, kind of snaps him out of it, and he kind of, he's kind of back in the swing of things. It's a shame to have lost it. It really is.
Yeah, yeah.
I think there was a fearing that, the giant bat might have put people off, which, I don't know. Of all the other things we have in this movie, I don't think it
Batman
would have.
movie.
Yeah, you know. Oh, plus I think it was in the trailers too. I think everyone was kind of like, there was like a brief glimpse of, like, the giant bat in the trailers, which you might have seen even. So. Uh,
Yeah.
we don't have to. There's not a lot in the third act. The third act, honestly, is, I think, the weakest part of the movie to a degree. It's
Oh yeah, without a doubt, because like all the stuff I was talking about with like the Jim Carrey shenanigans, and like I mean it really just kind of falls apart at that point by the end.
Yeah, I mean, this is honestly Act Three. One could say is the springboard, like I said in my thesis. Like, it's the springboard for all the weakest parts of the movie that Batman and Robin really builds off of, in terms of, like, the set pieces, and we're going really, like, we're going super. We kind of hints of being toyetic here, that then Batman and Robin makes a whole meal out of. Think about it. We introduced the Batwing and the Batboat because everything else, because the car has been destroyed. We're flying in the vehicles that the kids are going to want to buy.
Hmm.
I love the holy rusted metal joke. I think it's so cute. Climbing up the, holy rusted metal, Batman. What? The metal. It's full of
That's
holes.
fun. That's fun. Honestly, like I can like if someone wanted to point out that that was a little too on the nose, I honestly wouldn't even argue with them. But for me, it does fit my personal sense of humor pretty well. I had a fun time with that. Yeah.
The death trap in itself, I really feel, should have been Two Face's idea, because it's a whole sadistic choice. That's his whole shtick. I don't think it
Mhm.
should have been the Riddler's idea. As a kid, though, I loved, like, the drama of, like, oh no, what's Batman gonna pick?
Right. Yeah.
Nostalgically, I was, like, on the edge of my seat, like, oh god, how's he gonna? But admittently, solution, like, well, he can just swing over. I didn't know he could just swing over. Where's the drama on that? Why is it not two separate tubes? Where what went into the design of this layer?
Mhm.
I hate the sonar suit with a burning passion. The sonar suit. This is, again, the fact that we keep the sonar suit when we go to Batman Robert. Maybe not keep it. We build off of the sonar suit. Like, we lose the whole bat emblem. I really do love, even with the nipples. I like the bat suit because it looks very much like the Keaton suit, but it's got little nuances to it. And Kilmer looks really good in it. But the sonar suit, it has like these stupid vents on the wings. It's completely pointless. It's experimental. Why? Because all he does is throw one batarang right above, right above the Riddler's head. It's not even like,
I mean, Dragon, it's absolutely. I feel like this is kind of like the genesis point for how toygenic
mhm.
things we're gonna get in Batman and Robin.
It's the variants. It's the variant toys. It's the whole, we got to
Right,
put Batman
right,
like in
yeah,
the outfits that he never would wear in a million years with the Kenner toy line. It's like,
exactly,
I
exactly.
know. It just doesn't it feel stupid though? Like he like the sonar, and mind you, Nolan years later he legitimized this idea where Batman actually gave Batman the white eyes for the first time ever on film. You
Yeah,
know, it was actual sonar, but he got it from this movie. And
uh-huh.
here's how I know he got it from this movie: when they auditioned Batman. Okay, when they auditioned Christian Bale, they put him in that stupid sonar suit.
Right, right.
No joke. There is footage of this. Him and Cillian Murphy. They're in that stupid
Oh
sonar
God.
costume. It's ridiculous. It's pointless. They got rid of the yellow emblem, which is like,
Honestly, it bothers you. This is like the one thing in the movie that I think does genuinely bother you more than it bothers me. But I respect the passion.
I know. I've always felt as a kid, even I just felt like, man, why this suit's lamer than the other one? It's like, where's the oval? I don't know. It always struck me because '89 was so built on that logo, and we've
Uh,
just ditched it. The anime
no,
again.
I mean you're not wrong there. The fact that they did just kind of ditch the iconic design that's not great. I'll agree with you.
And I mean, look, if to be, you're right. At the end of the day, it's like it's a fanboy thing. But I'm just saying that with Batman the Animated Series being my intro, like that yellow oval because of the Burton films. I mean, just the yellow oval's important. I don't
Mhm.
know. And I'm not saying we historically in comics we've gotten away from the yellow oval, but it just felt like such a dumb reason to get away from the yellow oval. Like, oh yeah, I just had this spare bat suit. Just it's untested. What's it even do? What does it
Right,
even
right.
do? All it does, it has lenses that don't even help you aim the thing because you're just going to throw one batarang above his head anyway. So I do like the idea that he terrifies the Riddler kind of like with the fear of bats when because Riddler has absorbed all the and so while I think the Riddler should have been just kind of smart from the get go, the idea that he's absorbed all this intelligence and ego and it's been in service of his ego and it's now kind of biting him in the end. He has Bruce Wayne's memories of the bat. So he's using that against him to kind of make him terrified and drive him crazy. That's kind of neat.
Mhm, mhm.
Because that gets me to like that John Glover thing that I love, where it's John Glover's Riddler at the end of Batman the Animated Series, going like, "I have to know how do you do it? How I have to know."
Right,
It's kind of
right.
like screaming like a lunatic in Arkham Asylum, thinking he's Batman because he's been driven off the deep end. I
And
like that we.
honestly, that is like I will say like that is probably the one moment from Carrie that I do genuinely kind of buy. I'm not gonna lie.
Also, shout out Rene Auberjonois as Dr. Burton, who was modeled after Tim Burton. They made
Yes,
him look
yes,
like.
yes. That's fun. That's fun. I caught that.
I will say this too. I don't like that we look, it's Batman didn't technically kill him, but the way we dispatch with Two Face, I love that it's a reference to Batman the Animated Series. Literally, it's the Two Face episode from Batman the Animated Series where he throws the coins in the air, and that's what does Two Face in. I don't like that it kind of leads to him falling to his watery grave, but
Mhm.
I like it as a defeat. I will give him points on like how we defeated Two Face on that one. It's pretty cool. So, last thing, Batman and Robin running against the bat signal, which I still love that because it's a fusion of we end on the bat signal
I
every
think it's a
movie.
shame that we kind of like, in Batman and Robin, we're like, oh, and Batgirl's there too. But no, I agree, Dragon. Honestly, I honestly think, I don't know how much of a hot take this is going to be. I honestly think that singular image is one of the single most iconic things from this era of Batman. I really do. Like it sticks out in my mind very vividly from when I was a kid.
I really like that it's a I think it's a kind of a classy nod to '60s Batman because the '60s
Mhm.
Batman movie ended with Batman and Robin running through the street, so it's kind of a combination of like the two tropes that honestly I've never had an issue. I always love a Batman movie ending on the bat signal. Which I know it's not every now with the reasons we kind of broken away from this, but I still just love the idea. We're running away from we either we incorporate the bat signal in some way, shape, or form, and we've kind of infused a little bit of '60s in there. So I always thought it was a nice touch. I thought it was an ending. It's always the ending of this movie. Always as a kid made me think, why can't this movie be called Batman and Robin?
Honestly, switch the titles around, and I think it would kind of make sense.
I know it always does make more sense because like the whole point is like, okay, so
Because
Batman's
Batman
gonna
Forever, like Batman, like the whole point of like Batman and Robin is like the excess, and I feel like Batman Forever kind of embodies that a little bit more.
like it feels like I think the reason this movie's called Batman Forever, aside from its marketing, is
Also, Batman, like Batman and Robin, would have been the fourth Batman movie, so you know you got that little like phonetic synergy there as well.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I think it's called Batman Forever because of the whole like Batman's kind of contemplating like maybe Batman should come to an end and it doesn't, and that's why it's Batman Forever. But again, it's a very loose reasoning given what we have in the movie. But you're right though, Batman and Robin does feel more systematic, like emblematic of what the movie should have been. Where Batman Forever could have been applied to like, okay, if the Bat family is growing, ergo Batman will kind of endure forever, kind of thing, you know. Well, yeah, a little bit. I just mentioned that. I said Rene Auberjonois. He's playing Dr. Burton.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Kogi says, I think the 1990s Batman film franchise could be considered a 5-film franchise if you factor in The Flash, like how Superman Returns is like the 5th Christopher Reeve Superman film. Dragon, I'm sure you have stuff to say about that.
Well, I'm trying to think. You said about the '90s.
No, he's talking about
Oh,
the
right.
yeah,
Right.
the Flash.
Well, I
Yes.
don't. That really doesn't count at all.
I kind of on some level see what he's saying because like Michael Keaton Batman is like he is genuinely like a supporting character in that movie, but I don't know. I just think like the Batman in that movie, even though it's played by Michael Keaton, it's what we were talking. If anything else, it's like kind of like the off world, the Elseworlds thing we were
Well,
talking.
yeah, it's absolutely Elseworlds. I mean, I
Uh-huh.
think that I want to say the prevailing theory is that the Batman we have in there is kind of in that whole like what the Burton's Batman 3 might have been, or at least in line with like what
Right,
a
right, right.
distant version of that universe of Batman would have been. So I mean, it's a way of looking at it. Like the whole Superman Returns argument. I mean, okay, look, the Superman Returns fifth Christopher Reeve. That's valid, I guess, because it's what they're. It's very much
That
made
movie
to
was
be.
absolutely designed to
Yeah,
be a Christopher Reeve Superman movie.
exactly. It's
Yeah.
designed to be that. Yes, so it's.
Did you know I'm sure I brought this up. I saw the fucking midnight screening of Superman Returns.
Oh wow, really?
It was depressing, Dragon. There was zero energy in that theater. I'm sure you're not surprised to
It's
hear
still
that.
sad that like the coolest part of that movie is like when he's holding the green car over his head, like the first part.
Right. I mean, I don't know. There's certain I do genuinely think Brandon Routh, like, yeah, he just did the Christopher Reeve impression. He's genuinely really good in that movie, though.
No, no, look, Brandon Routh is not a problem with it. He's good in that movie. And honestly, he's really good if in the I told you he played the Kingdom Come version of Superman in
Mhm.
the
Yeah, I remember you saying that.
CW across. And he looked
And you know what?
phenomenal.
Kevin Spacey is objectively a piece of fucking garbage, but that fits for Lex Luthor, man.
Look again. Say what you will about Spacey, okay, but he was made to be Lex Luthor. Let's be honest, okay. He
I'm
was a great.
still convinced that Kevin Spacey picked his roles very intentionally. There's a reason why his one of his most famous roles is essentially him creeping on a high school girl for
Well,
like
maybe that's just.
one time.
What if the casting directors were just trying to send the message to us that we didn't want to
Right,
pick up
right,
on it? Maybe
right.
that's what it was.
Yeah.
It was like, why is no
He
one
won an
believing us?
Oscar for that. That's what's creepy about that whole thing. Anyways, I digress.
Okay. Anyway, yeah. So, but yeah, we've kind of reached the end of Batman Forever.
Yeah, and I gotta say, Dragon, I honestly think, objectively speaking, this is probably the better movie because it does have more substance as far as like fleshing out the characters. The Robin and Alfred stuff is genuinely my favorite element of this whole movie. It's pretty much perfection. That being said, I still think by and large, if given the choice in any given evening to turn on Batman Forever or Batman and Robin, I think I'm still going Batman and Robin just because I think that movie's just like the more fun kind of party movie to just turn your brain off to and just indulge in the kitschiness of it. And this movie certainly has problems. I definitely think out of this era of Batman films, this probably has the weakest lineup of villains, at least as far as like how they were, because I mean, say what you will about Schwarzenegger's Mr. Freeze, but at least visually that guy looks fantastic, and there are certain things they do with Schwarzenegger's Mr. Freeze that are on point. I just think with both of these characters, they pretty much missed the mark. So I definitely think there's pros and cons to each movie. I honestly think comparing Batman Forever and Batman and Robin is a really, really interesting exercise. So, but yeah, I mean, as we already kind of went over, I think Val Kilmer is pretty great, maybe close to being objectively the best Batman when you stack up like just all the different layers that he was able to pull into his performance within the same performance. I don't know. There's a lot to like about this movie, but there's also a lot of silly shit that drags it down. I think that's my last word on it.
Yeah, I look. I'm always gonna have a debt of gratitude towards Batman Forever. You know, I want to be clear. I know the Schumacher films are both kind of famous for and infamous for kind of trying to take pages from the animated series book and kind of like kind of flopping around with them, honestly. But again, I really enjoy Batman Forever. I always have, and there's always that thing of like Batman Forever came out, and I was like watching it, and like I really liked it, and like you're playing with the kids, and you're saying like which Batman. Who's your favorite Batman, like in live action at that point in time? And I mean, my instincts were Kilmer because I thought he did such a really good job with it. I mean, at that time, mind you, again, not factoring in Conroy, which clearly is the animated Batman. But again, like the kids in the playground, they're like, no, we want the real Batman. It's.
And you're just like, fools. Conroy is the real Batman.
Well, of course, that's what I'm thinking. Mask of the Phantasm's the best Batman movie, but I can't say that.
Right. Yes.
But it's the fact that Forever again was like it was in the vein of like we're taking pages from from these from the subtleties on Batman there, and I don't know, I just Forever was always just it was a really good time. I think Kilmer did an excellent job as Batman. Looking back on it again, I find so many. I find a lot of nostalgia. I see so many of the things I enjoyed. I mean, I see the strings attached to the things I enjoy. It's like, certain things happen because of this, or like, we're kind of playing it safe with Carrie when we probably should have been more ambitious. Well, we definitely should have been more ambitious with him. Two-Face should have been the lead villain, but all that went south. Like I see the faults, I see the strings, but it doesn't make me like it's a well-worn bat suit. It's
Totally.
it's not the best one. But it's I will say I like it a lot more. I could rewatch. Honestly, I could rewatch it more than I could Batman and Robin because Batman and Robin, it's always going to be like, oh man, like they butchered certain parts of it. To me, I know I respect the Tiki enjoys it. I respect the people like that. The whole so bad it's good quality, or the fact that it's kind of like Schumacher's take on '60s Batman.
Yeah.
Which again, I mean, look, there's an argument to be made there. I don't know. I come down somewhere in the middle where I don't think all those choices are intentional. I don't know. I think at a certain point, I really just think Schumacher kind of threw up his hands where the studio wants this. I'm just going to take a stab at '60s Batman because I can't work with these people.
I mean, as far as Batman, I will say the weakest element of Batman and Robin stuff is basically anything that's not Batman or Mr. Freeze related. Like, I do not like Dick Grayson in that movie. I do not like Batgirl in that movie. But yeah, Poison Ivy is kind of a mess.
I mean, look, there's only two things I like in Batman and Robin. Two very specific things, okay? I really think Arnold Schwarzenegger could have worked as Mr. Freeze. And the reason I say that is we see the brief flashback where the idea of Mr. Freeze is watching his wedding video with Nora Freeze. That is something that, again, that's in line with that in the animated series. That's again, the makeup looks really good on him when he's outside of the goofy suit. He's have like the blue skin on him. It's a legitimately great scene with Mr. Freeze that speaks to that character and what I want to see from that character in live action. And I love it when Schwarzenegger kind of plays, just kind of plays the genuineness. Like I love him in Twins and just seeing like the subtleties of him in Twins and stuff. Like I know a lot of people are going to say Terminator 2. Yes, Terminator 2 clear is the better example, but you know what I mean though.
On Terminator 2 kind of exhausts me. It's good, but it's one of those movies where it's like it's so good, and people have said so much about that's like, yeah, what more needs to be said? It's
But
fucking
that's
fun.
what I mean. I want to go with like the size of Schwarzenegger. No one's like talking. No one like
Right.
talks about how good he was in Twins. He just played a
Oh,
legitimately good person in that movie. And I thought, these are the kind of like acting things I like
it
seeing.
just looks like Jingle All the Way, honestly.
Sure,
Yeah,
sure.
his character's maybe a little bit more morally gray in that movie, but at the end of the day, he's just trying to be a good dad in that movie, and that's it.
Like again, the frustrations on
Mhm.
Schwarzenegger there, like
Mhm.
like the genuine, like I like it when he plays like great humanity like that. But anyway, so the other thing too is like the strong element of Batman and Robin. I can't take away that is in conjunction with one of the elements that really worked for you here and worked for us here. Michael Goff as Alfred is doing some of his best acting in Batman and Robin. The dying Alfred plot is really strong, and the scene where he basically says his goodbyes to Bruce Wayne is
Yeah,
utterly like that's what I'm saying. Like the Batman and Robin movie
it
can
hits you a little
deliver,
bit for sure.
like for sure, like Batman, like Bruce Wayne having potentially his last scene without the whole "I love you too, sir." Like that's beautiful.
Mhm.
So I mean, I can't. At the end of the day, I can't fully discount Batman and Robin with that. I can put it at the bottom of every totem pole that's in existence, but I can't discount it. Batman Forever though, I can rewatch this movie and when Kilmer passed, I rewatched the movie because I knew we would be eventually talking about it for this, and it would be the 30th anniversary. But it's just like when Kilmer passed, it was just this kind of thing of like I just it was like seeing an old friend again. It was like that. There's that
Mhm.
well-worn '90s VHS tape. That's what this was. This was like just right. It was the grand midpoint of where we were with like Batman being adapted on film, and it was something new. It was something fresh. It was something exciting, and it was like it was something that again like Kilmer and kind of that Lazen kind of George Lazenby are just kind of like the one and done Bond. I know you could say the same thing about Clooney, but just for my point here, it was just like something that was like
Well, Clooney, like the big thing with Clooney is that he's essentially the closest thing that we're gonna have to like a big budget version of Adam West Batman. But
sure.
but Val Kilmer is much more in that Bond example of like he's actually giving it effort. He's actually really trying. Clooney wasn't trying. Clooney, he's just being Clooney. He's just like, hi, Freeze, I'm Batman. You know.
Again, it was kind of like Batman Forever is just kind of to a degree, it was indicative of the '90s when it was trying. It's the experimental. It's indicative of the '90s being experimental, and that we're trying new things. We're putting effort into this. We're it's kind of a culmination of it's Batman. It's kind of Jim Carrey. It's all these like we're doing things that we still haven't cracked the code on in Batman. Some things that we have cracked the code on. I think it is the definitive underrated Batman film.
Mhm.
Yeah.
All right. Well said. Well said. Well, folks, we've had a lot of fun here tonight. I think Kogias kind of sums it up really well here. I think that both Joel Schumacher Batman films are charming, upbeat films, and yes, I
There you
agree.
go.
But yeah, we've had a lot of fun here tonight. Big thanks to Kogias, Eli of Little Blue Productions, and Richard's Victim for joining us in the chat. Y'all are awesome. And yeah, stay tuned for more stuff as we get into the summer movie season. We're going to have some spoiler casts. We're going to have some debates. We're going to have some anniversary retrospectives, all kinds of fun stuff coming up. All right. Have a good night, folks. See y'all later.
They'll get drive through.